at how the market's shaping up here as we head towards the close. 1.3 for the S&P 500, 0.8 there for the Dow. It's the NASDAQ, though, as we said right out of the gate today, was going to be an important day for tech stocks. Turns out to be a big day for tech stocks. The NASDAQ up a full, excuse me, 2% on the day, 1.5% for the TSX here in Toronto. Look at oil. 5% to the upside for crude oil today. It was up more than 5.5% at one point. Nice day for both Bitcoin and Ethereum, bouncing back nicely. 5.25% leading as far as cryptos are concerned. Nice green board right across the entire thing. We are dealing with positive momentum here. It's all about this group over here, though. Tech stocks, all three here. The semiconductors, software names, and the hardware equipment makers in positive territory. A couple of negative names in the software group, but otherwise very, very strong. It was the semiconductors, if you remember, right out of the gate this morning with all kinds of strength off that Samsung earnings report that came out overnight. So we were dealing with AMD, we were dealing with NVIDIA. There's NVIDIA, 4.8, 5.5 for AMD back to the upside. Travel names nicely strong today as well. CCL, NCLH, and RCL all 5 to 6.5% higher. Energy, as we saw, crude oil, monster move. So all of the producers back to the upside today as well, 7.5% for Apache leading the way right now. MPC, Devon, all here, Halliburton to name a few, MRO as well. Material stocks, some of the underlying resources have been pretty weak throughout the entire week, but back to the upside today. So we get the Fed minutes yesterday. Turns out to be a bit of a non-event. We end the session almost at day highs yesterday, and we come in today to a bit of follow-through, which is good to see for the overall market. Huge day for Apple, obviously. There was a note this morning on increased demand already for iPhone 14 before it even comes out. So positive right across the board. Hope your afternoon's going well. We'll jump into a bit of a review. How did you do this morning? Did you join us in the pre-market? If you didn't, make sure you do tomorrow. We'll be here again tomorrow. We'll be here every single day the market's open. Get you ready for the open at 9:30. Neal is here to kick things off today with a look at one of his trades.
Thank you, Brendan. The trade of the day today is going to be Alibaba, or as my good friend Ian on our show in the midday calls it, Alibaba. But Alibaba, look, it's all about the higher time frame sometimes. And really, when you look at a key level, you got to be willing to trade it in either direction, because if it's a big price, people are going to be all over it. There's going to be good trade action around it. So I want to start things off with the daily chart. And this nice little purple line here in Alibaba, I've zoomed in on the daily here. That is your 200 period moving average. We've broken away from the 50 period. You can barely see down here below 100 bucks. But every time since that breakaway from the 200 and the reclaiming of $100, every time we've gotten to that 200 period simple moving average, hard rejection, rejection, we've just been unable to break through. Now, obviously, you've been grinding higher lows the entire way through. Of course, this sets up for a breakout trade. And we'll get to the breakout in a quick second. But the other thing I'm always going to look for, if I see a pattern of rejections as a day trader, there's going to be a short opportunity there. And it's fine. You can sit that one out because the higher risk to reward might be for the long trade. And that certainly was the case today. But I'm always going to make that play where if I can get one of my favorite entry points, which is shorting off that high at the open, giving it to that resistance level, and then seeing if we can't get a good scalp trade. I'm going to do it almost every single time as a day trader. So we did have that short off of 121. We got a nice little flush. We were able to take almost a buck on it. And we had another opportunity to get some more shares out right before the open. And that was pretty much it. There was no pop and fade at 9:30. As a matter of fact, it tried to break the high. There's your little pop right before the open. And then held a higher low. And then from that point on, it was jailbreak city. If you're going to play a level like this, there are some levels where I'm shorting in front of resistance, but I only like it in one direction. I think the stock is going to eventually fail. And there are other ones where on the daily chart, really, like I said, you were gearing up towards this breakout with the higher low. So you know you want this break. As a matter of fact, Arun was looking at the 121 as well because it was just an obvious price level to grab. We've seen what Alibaba can do when it gets momentum behind it. So we reverse from short to long, more or less right at the open. This did not take very long after all. I do scalp some out immediately. Immediately we had a wick top right up to a 122, and it was the initial break. Within seconds, I'm getting the first scalp out. I usually take that first third on the first push. That way, if we go snap back down, I have a piece that I can reload here. That never happened. We pushed immediately to that 122 level, that next dollar up, so we're going to take some out there, thinking again, we should get another pull back in. And there was nothing at our re-entry price. That's how ridiculously strong this was. From that point on, this wasn't following the pattern that we've seen for a lot of breakouts for the last little bit. The reason why breaks haven't been as good this year, in addition to it being a bear market, has generally been that you're being put to the test after the breakout, either immediately or right after that first one or two pushes to the upside. So you're being tested. Do you want to reload? If you're trying to hold for the home run trade, are you sitting there being suckered as it comes back to your entry price? None of that today. It was clean to the upside. And once we cleared that 122 area, all we could do was sit out and wait for the absolute home run. Now, this is not some kind of scientific trade once we're past 120. 121. I simply go right back to the last time it failed up here. It was just shy of that 126 area, 125 and change. It's a nice even round number, that 125. It's a big psychological level. And you had the biggest candle on my 3-minute into that 125 level. So it's pretty simple. You get the big push up. It's the biggest, widest candle telling me most highest probability of a pullback. A lot of times I ask myself a simple question. If I was flat and I was watching that move at the open, and I saw that same candle in front of 125 as a day trader, what would I do? I'd be thinking about 124.85, 124.80, a short at that price with a stop at 125, with a slight little pullback, looking for just VWAP. So if that's what I'm thinking, if I was flat, well, if I'm long, that's a place to take profit. We get our target, and it does that pullback into VWAP. Now I'm kicking myself for not having reversed into a short position. However, every once in a while, the market smiles on you and says, you're going to get a second chance at a level. And when you get that opportunity, you just take it. However, this was not the initial test, not going to be as clean of a trade. So I did not short it until it got past the previous high and right at that 125 mark. As tight to the top as I could, more aggressive scalping it out initially because it's a much more bullish move, wedging itself up to that 125 for a potential break. More aggressive taking it out. When it finally starts to flush, then you can start holding back in for VWAP. I was never really thinking about holding past VWAP given how strong this was. The key thing here about BABA was big, monstrous level when it finally took out that 200 period moving average. That's the catalyst for the trade, and you've got to be looking for those types of opportunities. In a bear market, that's when you get these retraces through monstrous levels, which can lead to some good breaks.
Yeah, really nice bounce back day for some of the Chinese names, including the EV makers. There was some negativity yesterday, if you remember, very briefly. We discussed it on the COVID front. A little bit of COVID cases popping back up in certain areas of China. We were talking about that in the pre-market. We were talking about a whole bunch more, all on the watch list. Make sure you grab that every single day for free. Before we come on, I'll give you a look at another one here, actually just popping up in front of me on a volume scanner, guys. NIO, trying to get back through this high right now on a decent little pop-up here. Yeah, Neal up 8.3% on the day as the futures push back towards day highs. It's been one of those days, just a grindy kind of move to the upside, 1.4% for the S&P 500 right now. Let's talk about meme stocks, shall we? Because it's been a big day for both GME and also AMC. Maybe riding the coattails a little bit, but GME with the stock split announcement aftermarket yesterday. We were kind of wondering this morning in the pre-market what was going to happen off of this announcement. Initially, it tried to fade it, but decent move nevertheless, guys, for both today, GME and AMC.
100%. And by the way, Brendan, you mentioned Neal there trying to get back to that high being exactly where my current stop is on NIO. I'm short here in front of 2250. It made a bit of a failed break at VWAP here at that same 2250, got up to 60s, rejected that price, so I did jump into a short off it, and now it looks like it wants to retest. I took some out for profit, thankfully, but then I reloaded right back into it here in front of that 50 level. So that's what's going on there. I gave GameStop a chance here. I'll go to the 15 so you can kind of see this one line up a little bit better. I gave GameStop a chance in both directions, and I should have just stuck to initially thinking I liked longs if we could have had them anywhere near that 120 level. Sure, great, that's support. You're not likely to see it. Otherwise, short off 130 at the open was the play I was looking for. As you can see here, I did have the initial short. It was working. I stopped out way too tight and then reversed into a breakout long. Breakout longs, when you've gone $5, $6, $7 into a breakout long at the open, it's probably run too far. And then of course I made the mistake of giving it some room. So I'm like, let it work. Give it 250. It's GameStop. You know, you have to at least give it $2, $3. I gave it $2.50 in this case because it could go to 140, 150. But that was the wrong thing to do. All you end up with is on the higher time frame a wick off top, validating the short, and a retracement to the lows, which held that support level ultimately at 123, it looks like. And then it's been off to the races. However, you know, this actually has some room. We talked about this on Alibaba just not seconds ago, but with the trade of the day, about rejecting that 200 period moving average. Well, GameStop is doing something very similar. And that's why I felt, okay, the break at 130 had room to go. And it's hard not to still feel that way. I mean, the catalyst here that you're going to be doing the split certainly does make it cheaper for options trading, and that can be a positive catalyst for a stock like this. So I'm on board thinking it has a chance to maybe get to that 200 period where I would do the same thing that I did on Alibaba, where you're initially saying, well, I expected to reject it, but if you can get a clean break, and in this case you have to give it some room, it's got these wicks above, could have some tremendous upside. AMC, for lack of a better term, has just been stronger all day today. No specific catalyst for it, although there's some movie releases this weekend that'll be interesting. But wow, AMC been super strong all day long. For all we just said about GameStop, AMC up 15% without the specific catalyst, and it has been breaking and failing its 50-period moving average for the last 2 weeks now. Just break, close above, next day fail below. Next day breaks, closes above, and then the following day just barely hangs on with a red day, and then you're just coming right back below. It's trying to close above significantly that 50 period. Today is the day that's happening today. I don't think that's a stretch of the imagination to tell you that AMC, barring some kind of ridiculous disaster, which ain't happening, is going to close well above that 50 period. It's in breakout territory, and that $15 break, it might be crowded, but I'll be on that train when it comes.
Well, GME was one of those names where earlier this morning, we were at the sweet spot, right? We were at that inflection point around that 124. If we were able to catch bids, previous resistance broken was confirmed. If we lost it, odds are we were going to see those lows again. Turns out we caught a bid, and it's a perfect location to do it. If they're going to do it, they got to do it there. They did, and now here it is at 133. I find this very interesting because you zoom out a little bit and you look at the daily on this, and you're like, oh, okay, this is where it happened, because it's been, I haven't looked at the GME chart in a while. And the fact that it's been actually at a consolidation since beginning of June, down through these 120s, and then they get this kind of action, taking out now the 130s going up, it's got space into the 140s and in probably mid 140s. If you clear 150, that's a different story, but at least 140 and change, you've got upside. So although we're at 133 right now, even if it were to come back in, say tomorrow or whatnot, you actually have another opportunity to pick up some bids. Because of the way the daily is playing out, it does look like it wants to take a look at the top end of the range. So that's how it looks on the daily. 30, sweet spot this morning. If you had faith and hit it, then you'd be up. If you didn't, well, I chose not to, right? So here we are kind of just missing the boat on this one. Missing the boat on a lot of longs because I've been trying to be focusing on the shorts. You don't see it on the screen there, but I do have a short in BABA, which is out 40 cents or so. Still waiting on this one. I'm going after the 2-week names. I only have 2 trades on the day. McDonald's, BABA, both shorts. McDonald's, we got out somewhat with a tiny loser after it broke back above that 83 mark. And that's it. That's not 83, 53? 53 and change. Yeah, so here we are kind of just waiting for the market to provide some more opportunities. I'm keeping an eye on crude going into the crude close and also nat gas as well, as nat gas is bouncing off those 630s.
Before we go back to you, Brennan, I just want to get this one in there because someone had just asked in the chat where I was going to get out of Bed Bath & Beyond from this morning. And basically right here. Now, if you're watching the morning show, I missed $5 on Bed Bath & Beyond. Of course, we like Alibaba off the open. GameStop at the open was going to be in play for us. AMD in the chip space. So Bed Bath & Beyond, for me, got swept under the rug. And it shouldn't have happened because that $5 break was pretty good. But I like 540. Why? Because when we traded this thing after its garbage, its terrible earnings, the $5 bounce gave you 540 as a top, and that has held resistance until today. It then put that move at 930 right into 540, rejected, came back into 5, established the range, new range, 5 into 540, exactly what it did at the open on the earnings day to the downside. So that's a clean break as far as I'm concerned. I liked the $6 target, just because that was resistance pre-market. It's a round number as well, but I let it get there the first time and reject. Took out that didn't take the trade out there the first time it got there. This time I didn't want to look that gift horse in the mouth. So I am now out of Bed Bath & Beyond. The last long position I had, although I should have still had one of the chip names that we'll talk about in a bit.
A little bit of a move there, guys, in crude oil once again back to the downside. Pretty impressive day. I was also looking at this move on Novavax. Obviously, 15 minutes left for oil, but vaccine names back to life a little bit today, including Novavax on this note. The EU clearing their partner SK Biosciences COVID vaccine for use in the European Union. So a huge move here, 13%. I mean, Moderna's up, I think, 9% the last I checked as well. So big moves right across the board. We were talking about tech, though, if you joined us in the pre-market, saying simply that, you know, if it was going to be a positive day for the overall market, going to be an important day for the Apples and the Microsofts of the world. There was a couple of minor notes on each, including some price target increases from analysts, but overall pretty good day for the NASDAQ in general.
Yeah, you can't complain about this day. And sure, I guess we'll get to the chips after this, but when it came to big tech, I looked at two names, one of them Amazon, I'll get to that in a second, but it's Meta that I wasn't that disciplined waiting for the short trade. I'm still offering from 8 o'clock, I've been offering in front of 173 because this it had been relatively weak off of that price level. So anytime you get a bull run or a strong market and you're still looking at resistance levels, watch out AMD 80, by the way. Looks like we just rejected 80. He's going to like that trade in a quick second. I don't want to skip that because it got to 799.99 AMD, so watch there. But Meta has been rejecting 173 ever since. It blew through that price to the downside. It's just been a fantastic opportunity every chance you've been able to short off of it. However, you just have to be patient today. The longs I liked in Meta never came through. I wanted closer to that 166. We never saw those bottoms despite any dark pool candle wicks that you might see. So the dip buy never came into play for me. Now I'm just still waiting on that offer. If we get it, great. I know where I'm wrong. It's at 173. The other name and level we liked was Amazon. And I should have reversed this like we reversed Alibaba. That 115.50, it did have room all the way up to 118 here. But all I did is short it one time, got in, got out, 115.5, got out for the dollar winner, and then never got into the reverse on Amazon. When it finally broke that level, it's been clean to the upside. I think you've still got at least a buck before it runs into resistance, but the chips will get there before Amazon does, as the NASDAQ now climbing over 2%. On the session, yet Meta still has yet to clear through that big 173 level. Look, it's an update for Meta, but not nearly as strong as some of these other big cap tech names.
Yeah, my look is going to be, when we talk about tech leading the way up, yeah, we've got the Apples and the Microsofts of the world that are up, but today is going to be a key day for Tesla. Tesla has been consolidating for a while now, since late June, and it's against that 710. We've been talking about this since Tuesday, since I was on, where if it gets into the top end of the range, you look for fades up top. If it gets close to that 650, you look for longs near the bottom, and you just play the range until it breaks. Well, today's the break. That's essentially the breakout of that consolidation range up top, north of 710. And here it is at 740, clear run all the way up to 750 if it wants to go. So next up would be that 748 to 750 look on Tesla. Even if it were to come down that previous break, I would argue that there's a decent long opportunity all the way down to 680. So we essentially now have a buy zone right through 700, going all the way down to 680, and that's available for any sort of dip buys on the way down. So Tesla was a critical move. It's a leader today as well at 5.59%, the top tech name in the top 10 anyways, and NVIDIA following suit at 5.22. But keep an eye on Tesla. That's a big runner today, and it will provide opportunities going forward, even on dip buys as we get into that 710, 700 area that we consolidated around for days now.
Yeah, crazy move, crazy breakout right across the board for a number of these, including some of the chip makers today. Very, very strong for AMD, for NVIDIA. It was AMD that was leading. On this note, this morning, if you missed it overnight, Samsung with pretty good results and an even better forecast. Their best, in fact, since the April to June period of 2018, given the current circumstance and the current condition of the world, guys. Not a bad report here for Samsung lifting these ones.
No, not at all. I mean, ever since the Micron earnings, the entire sector has been weak for the last month, couple of months here, the chip space. But especially since Micron had those earnings, and AMD in particular had broken through that 80 on the daily chart. It was that last line of support there, and you saw it make a fresh bottom just a few sessions ago. So you get this print, and you got to start thinking about, whoops, wrong way. You got to start thinking about, okay, well, we're claiming some of these levels to the upside. We looked at yesterday's high. That was right at that 76. Right at 75, 76 area, closed at 75. I know I like longs above that 75. It's a tight consolidation above yesterday's top for a clean breakout trade at the pre-market high. It had room to that $80 level, the mistake that got made on my part, which it'll happen. We take the scalp out usually that first buck or that first move initially, and then we're holding on for dear life. We want to see it go all the way to our target the same way Baba did. It never quite got there. He got to 79, just started rejecting over and over again. And then I go back to when it failed off that 80 level. It had a lower high at that 79. We put a trail in, got trailed out. And as usual, if it's super strong, eventually you get that price. I'm now short. Like I just said, watch out, AMD's at $80. I'm now short in front of the 80. Actually, I got 79.87. I'll probably add. I'm sitting at 94s. Just to try to risk about 10 cents, get a better price, price at 91.92, and then risk about 10 pennies plus slippage off that 80 level. Pure scalp trade, because up 6%, super, super strong move for AMD. And shout out to Arun, by the way. I know you were talking about the 156 level on NVIDIA. Yeah, and that one, I didn't really get the longs on NVIDIA, unfortunately, but that 156 area, which if you look at the chart, had a similar resistance. Like the day the Micron earnings come out, you break 158, and then you had resistance at 156, and the next day, sort of the same thing. So came in today waiting, load up chart, waiting for that chance off 156. I'll go back to the 15-minute because it's already there for you. Just zoom in. Waiting for the chance to get that 156. It rejected it several times, continuously, like getting above 156, and then rejecting the high. So we jumped into it after AMD came and trailed me out. We jumped into that short, scalped it back into 155, and then since then haven't done anything. I had a quick long trade that did not last very long, but overall, NVIDIA, which at one point was relatively weak compared to AMD, is catching up, and catching up in a big way, because once it finally held that 156 bid for the final time, that last little sell-off here, it's just been off to the races. So NVIDIA about as strong and approaching 160, which I'll probably do the same thing. Even if 80 blows out in AMD, I'd probably do the same thing at 160 on NVIDIA, which is short at that 90.
Yeah, and if we're going to go down that chip road, I'm always going to be looking at names. I know we bring up NVIDIA a lot, AMD a lot, but I always find, it's not that I always find them, but I always look at other names too that aren't as flashy. And something that people never really take a look at is Broadcom, AVGO, right? And AVGO was one of the other leaders. It's number 3. No, it's not number 3. It's number 4, actually, in the top 10 of the NASDAQ here, up 3.5%. And AVGO is working that 500 mark up top. And I think it's not necessarily the 500 that's interesting. It's the fact that they cleared this 485 to 495 congestion area. Initially, it was support going back to mid-June, and then it became a problem as they were trying to take it out. And now it's actually been cleared back to the upside. So this is going to bring a lot of volume. This 10-point zone here is going to bring a lot of volume and a lot of interest in the event that, say, 500 goes. 500 is not that big of a deal. The reason being there's some action here at 505, 502, all the way up. So I wouldn't really chase it into 500, but I think on a dip buy, and just like Tesla, on a dip buy, it provides the opportunity in a certain buy zone. I think AVGO is going to be one to look at as well if it were to re-enter that 495, 490, all the way down to 485, because there's a decent amount of action that's there from mid-June that we can actually work with. So definitely keep an eye on AVGO, up 3.5% on the day, and looking like it does have a chance to actually go a little bit further before pulling back. So we'll keep an eye on this as it gets closer and closer to 500.
I want to show you the oil chart here as we head towards the end of the session for crude. Still 4.5%. It broke down through that last little pivot there. That was the move I was talking about. But we get back up to 104.5, which corresponded with that level from 2 days ago. But 2 huge days to the downside, and maybe a little relief in store here for crude oil back to the upside. But I mean, we hold above 100, so I guess as you were for oil at this point.
So I was off a couple of days this week, and Sean's off today, and tomorrow I was off a couple of days, so we get to ruin the entire week. So I missed out on this whole 9 o'clock crude oil thing in the futures. However, if I lose on this trade tomorrow that I'm about to say, then I blame it on Brendan and Arun and take no responsibility of my own, because I wouldn't have known about this and I wouldn't have looked at this. But this 9 o'clock huge volume spike to the downside on Tuesday, I guess it would be Tuesday, it follows through after that. So despite how big that move is to the downside, it actually follows through for the rest of the day, if not even for the next half an hour. Then the same thing happens the next day, maybe not as big. And then today it's an up spike, so it's a relief rally, and then it follows through on that move. So, and the other thing about that too is if you kind of look at it, it actually had a break of 101 after the initial push, 15 minutes after 9 o'clock. So there seems like there's this huge volume that comes in, and then even if you don't, you just watch the direction that it goes, and then you've got yourself a trade almost in that direction for the next 15 to 20 minutes. Now that's the type of pattern that it's too obvious for it to last very long. So, it's happened 3 days in a row, twice to the short side, once to the long side. Just coming in and blindly trading it tomorrow probably doesn't make a ton of sense. But I'm going to have my eyeballs on that one. Because if you can catch it early enough in the move.
Are you going to trade it in crude, or are you going to trade it in another ETF or something else?
See, that's what I have not actually looked at anything but the crude oil futures.
Okay.
Chart. And the problem is I don't want to trade in the crude oil futures. I'd rather express it somewhere that I'm more comfortable with, whether it's an ETF or one of the individual, maybe like an individual name like an Oxy or a Chevron or something like that. So that's what I have to do tomorrow morning before I put a trade on like this, is try and find where and how I want to express it, because quite frankly, I don't trade crude oil futures. But when I see a pattern like that, it's hard not to like it. But I also question, where's your liquidity? How can you even get into that move? Is it really that clean? The volume's there, and it seems like it's an obvious trade, but that's not always the truth. And remember, if you're taking a 101 up here, well, this is broken out from 100, so you're risking $1 there to get a secondary move of like $1. Look, it gives you $1.50, $2.50 if you hold on to it today in the long side. But really, once it makes another move up, that's a one-to-one style trade based on a pattern. Whereas the days before, it was certainly paying off, a lot bigger than that if you held on to it. So that could also just tell you that when it goes down, it's got more oomph to the downside than it does if you take that long. But it's more of an idea that I want to make sure I'm checking, both when I go home tonight, maybe on the train, or definitely tomorrow morning during my preparation. But it's just seeing a pattern and then wanting to see if we can take advantage of it before it stops, because quite frankly, it's already done it 3 days in a row. The chances that it does it 4 is slim, but if it does, you want to take advantage.
Oh, for sure. And crude's about to close in about a minute, and I'm keeping a very close eye on how it's reacting. Because in the last little bit, Neal, you weren't here, but I've been actually making some plays here towards the closes on crude. And it's provided some decent volume. So as it falls off right now through those 103s, I want to see what it's going to do. Remember, at 230, it goes essentially, you lose the majority of the volume after the 230 close. It still trades on Globex, but you don't have the same kind of juice after that. So we're going to see if we can get a move going in the next 10, 15 seconds or so. But crude's been a very interesting setup here. And I think the critical thing with crude here is that initially I thought 104, but the way they reacted around 104, it's going to have to be 105. That was the top end level. Essentially 104, but then it moves to 105 now, but it's still the top end level here that we're going to work with. So it's kind of boxed in. Top end of the range, we're going to establish a range top here at 105. Damn, I'm not going to get this, am I? It's at 71. Yeah, I'm not going to get this. Never mind. All right, I'll just cancel the order. All right, crude at 105 is going to be the top end of the level, and the bottom, obviously, they're finding a nice little base here at 98, 97. I'm going to keep this right here. You see me draw that line, right? And I mentioned this before, and I mentioned this for months now. If I were to break this down to the daily, look at where we are. That support level coincides with support going all the way back to March, down to 92.50. And this is something that's come up before. So 92.50 is the bottom end range support, essentially all the way from 95-ish going down to 96, 95, all the way down to 92.50. You're bound to get existing buying support supporting any sort of down move. So it's not surprising that crude found a base here at 95 and bounced back to 102. So it's like a multi-day swing move. If you want to play that game, you find a reason to go long right at the bottom of the range. That's what you're trying to do. Find longs at the bottom of ranges, find shorts at the top of ranges. If you don't want to play ranges, play the breakouts. But essentially what crude has given you is that possibility of, hey, we've went $13 in 2 days. Relief rally time? Sure. Right off the 95 at support? Sure. And here you are, quick $8 on the day, and you just walk away from it, right? If you're playing that way, if you're trying to play it that way. So essentially, if you're good at ranges, you can work that range there, but 92.50, definitely keep it in mind on crude in the event that we do come back here into the 95s, 94s, whatever.
Hey, interesting question, guys. Maybe we can touch on this real quick. This contract, MCL, which is the micros, in relation to, as you guys were talking about, trading an ETF, I mean, liquidity, obviously, the biggest difference here. If you're trading a USO or something along that lines, on the ETF side of things. I mean, this is the micro version of the big contract, so that means $1 per tick per contract versus $10. But I mean, why not just trade 100 shares of an ETF?
Well, that's sort of the thing. So my first experience with the micros was trading on the ES, and we had, before we actually did the full day show on YouTube, we had tried out like just an hour on YouTube at the close, way back in the early iterations of TraderTV Live. And I remember that was one of the first or second times I traded the micros. And when there was a huge volume spike, what I found was, compared to the liquidity on the main E-mini contract, there was just not as much volume, not as much liquidity. So I'd see that and be like, oh, well, I know you're putting in less risk, but if there's less liquidity, I didn't love trading it. Now, since that's gotten way better, but that'd be the first thing I always look for. As a trader, it is about comfort level. If you can't put on the trade and feel comfortable that I'm going to get my out, I'm going to get shares when I want to, if it hits my stop, I'm able to cover my trade. If I have an area stop, not a hard stop, am I going to be able to execute out of this without moving the price? Little things like that matter to you. So you always want to make sure you're expressing the trade in a vehicle that makes sense for you there. And that's why looking for an ETF that might have the liquidity that I like would be the first place to go. Or trading an equity that I have experience doing makes sense. But oil futures, fine, great. I think it actually makes a ton of sense for people starting out to get really comfortable with something like the micros, because they provide you with a fantastic opportunity to get that volatility and get to express those market moves without having to pay up for the expensive main contract.
Yeah, the crazy thing about micros is it's somewhat newer. And I wish they had the micros when I was starting out with the futures, because they didn't, right? And so I had to work with spiders until you got the risk up, and then it got to a point where I was already on the ES, and then the micros came out. And that was a few years ago. I want to say like maybe 2018, 2019 maybe. It's not that old. The micro retail contract is actually fairly recent when you think about the lifespan of the futures contracts. It's a great tool to use. Like Brendan said, it's $1 per contract or per tick on the micro crude contract versus $10 a penny. $10 a penny versus $1 a penny. Obviously, at the beginning, when you're starting out, you want to learn. You're going to make a ton of mistakes, and you're going to be losing money. So lose the least amount of money as you possibly can going into it. And it's You can also interchange the ETFs as well, same way you do spiders for ES contracts or the MES contracts if you don't want to do the spiders. They're interchangeable, but there's certain tendencies that each one has. Now, the futures markets, I understand because of the way it moves. Spiders, the ETFs, understand that they're trying to keep in line with the futures market, so there's a lot more games being played. There's a lot more slippage in between. So be aware of that when you're deciding to take, you know what, I'm going to go ETF. If you're trading ETF following the futures contract, then that means when the futures contract tells you get out is when you get out of the ETF, because if you were to follow the actual ETF chart, it's too easy to flush people out because of minor discrepancies for a very short amount of time. It's easy to slip orders. It's easy to trigger stops. And all it takes is just a few orders with offers moving because there's a lot of algorithms involved, right? Same thing with the futures too, but I find there's more games with the ETFs just because they're trying to keep in track with the futures market. So I go directly to the source. So if I'm learning the futures markets, I'm going to go crude contract, ES contract. If I'm learning, I'm going to go the micro ES, micro NQ, and micro CL to learn those markets, and then eventually you'll get to a point where you go up to the other contract. But I would start there if you're going there. And again, it's about accessibility too. If you have futures access, you can do that. If you don't, I mean, you're stuck trading the ETFs, and that's not a bad way to go either. Just be aware that there's more slippage there.
Let's talk recession. Once again, we've had a ton of questions, guys, this time regarding how a recession would specifically affect, or maybe not, individual stocks, and therefore what are the best stocks to be trading on an intraday basis during a recession. You might be surprised with the answer here because we're probably going to tell you there's not going to be much of a difference when it comes to day trading, when it comes to individual stocks. But let's talk about why certain stocks, guys, are still, the best ones for day trading.
Yeah, I think it's one of those questions where, look, really, almost all the things still apply. You're going to have earnings as a catalyst sometimes, and then you're going to have economic numbers that come through, like inflation, and maybe you get the Fed speak, and that'll give some of your big tech names a bounce, or whatever you look at. But I just like some of these U.S.-listed Chinese names. And your Alibabas, your Neos, and specifically Alibaba in this case, because first off, a lot of what was moving this stock in general had far more to do with regulatory pressures from the CCP than it did with the fundamentals. Like, you look at the multiples on some of these names, and it's like, wow, I mean, they were already trading so far to the downside that who cares if they had economic slowdown, right? They're all beaten up so much that they had a different reason for coming down, which does mean in any kind of a relief, they've got so much room to catch up and get back to the upside. Now, I'm highlighting BABA for another reason as well. You can look at Neal for this. You can look at Li Auto as an example for this. XPeng across the board. Almost all of these names have reclaimed their 50 periods, starting to reclaim 200 period moving averages. So there is momentum to the upside. Their volatility is still gigantic. When Alibaba has a strong day, it is not a little bit strong. It is still putting in 5, 10, sometimes even we've seen like almost like 15% style moves in Alibaba and in both directions. So it's got a ton of volatility. It's not reliant necessarily on your typical catalyst. It's not that it only moves during earnings or only moves when the market moves. You'll have days where the market does nothing and the entire group of Chinese ADRs will have gapped up 5 or 6%. I can't tell you how many times I've come into a flat market in the last couple of weeks and seen across the board, hey, Neal's up 2%, and Pinduoduo's up 3%, and Alibaba's up 1.7%, and the futures are at 0.2%, and Apple's done nothing. So I'm looking to that group almost every single day for trade levels, for trading opportunities, because I feel like they don't care whether the market's moving or not. And if we get a big time downturn, well, some of their valuations like a BABA are depressed enough that there's still going to be some opportunities, especially if you can only go to that long side.
Yeah, for me, I always go, if you're going to trade something where you want volatility, you go to tech, man. Tech runs the world, right? Tech has been the king of volatility. Obviously, on news days where individual stocks get news, there's a different situation there. But if you want to come in every day and you want to look at a group of names that are always going to provide you that opportunity, whether it's one or the other, there's going to be something there, especially in the top 10 of tech. I look at, I have a list here. Actually, I'll pull it up for you guys right here. On my screen here, this is my watch list just for top tech. That's my top 10 tech. That's my top 10 S&P non-tech or not in the NASDAQ. And essentially, I just like to keep an eye on this group. I will always go through this, the Apples, the Amazon, Microsoft, and they're ordered like this because it goes from weighting too. So I know Apple is the biggest weight in the NASDAQ, also in the S&P. So I'll go Apple, Microsoft, and all the way down to AVGO. Now, I don't have Google both classes in here because I don't need Google's both classes. But at the same time, I just want to go through these names and find out which one's going to provide the opportunity. As you can see, market is up. Market is up. NASDAQ up 2.13%. Is there anything above 2.13% on this list? Yeah, Apple's up 2.3, somewhat in line. Okay, you got Tesla, you got Google, you got Nvidia, and you got AVGO, all of them outrunning the rest of the market as a whole. So clearly, these are going to be the leaders that are keeping this market at 2%. Then you got this, the Pepsi and Costco being down on the day. I just like to look at these names. There's going to be something. If you look at Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon and Tesla, just four, there's going to be something in one of those four every single day for you to make a move on. If all four of them go quiet, you should probably go take a nap because this is one of those things where there's going to be an opportunity somewhere. So I would lean on tech just because there's always something there available to you. And when this thing goes, whichever name decides to go and takes the rest of the market with it, you know there's going to be some excitement. So we'll keep an eye on tech as always as we go in and every single day come in, check tech, and then move on to other names on the list.
And it's such a great point. As day traders, as intraday day traders, we require a few simple ingredients. We require price action, volume, and volatility. If you're in a recession, if you're not in a recession, doesn't really matter. If you can find those three ingredients, you can find opportunities. We like to look at opportunities that come with some sort of catalyst, typically around here, that helps to move a stock one way or another. So great look, guys, at a few ideas for day trading during a recession. Speaking of those Chinese stocks, guys, just saw Neal again. Neal, I know you're still watching this, but keeps popping up in front of me. So back to the upside here. Tried to take out that high once again, but still struggling a little bit for NIO. But yeah, speaking of those Chinese ADRs, huge day here.
I know, and anyways, the thing about the Neal one, I'm not blaming you for it there, but that level, the second you mentioned it at the beginning here when I was doing the trade of the day, I was like, yeah, I did not need to have this reload on NIO, and it's sort of obvious why. Hindsight's going to be 20/20, but you made a pretty hard bottom at 22 here, and I like the look. I didn't catch the short there when Baba made its turn; it was a good one. But when it rejected that level, that VWAP trade, it already gave you a flush and then held a higher low, and then I'm watching it strong push right back in there, and I was probably a little bit too aggressive reloading. There was no need to have done that. It actually ended up putting another higher low, and I probably could have just taken it out flat, saying, this is not a trade that I love the level. I was just looking at the overall futures and trying to pick something for a reversal play and almost forcing it. Now, overall, you might end up winning because, hey, you took some profit out and scalped it, but that doesn't make it the right thing to do. I think in this market, we said it time and time again, if you like a price, just don't compromise, right? Like if you like a certain trade level, like I'm sitting here all day long, I'm waiting for Meta to come up to that 173. If it doesn't get there, I don't have to make a trade. AMD, since the break this morning, we're looking for $80 as a top. And all day long, we wait. It finally gets to 80, like right as we came back on. Like, how good is that timing? I can't control that. But it goes right up to $79.99. Like, really? It goes right to 99. Obviously, it does that. And now we're starting to pull back. So I'm looking to catch some down in front of VWAP to get some more shares out here. Right now, it's working, but you had to be patient with it. It's been holding pretty well to the upside and been super strong. So it's a counter trend trade. When I'm trading counter trend, I am not thinking home run. I have made a colossal error I actually put this in the chat on AMC because this AMC's been super strong. And I understand there was GameStop that had the direct, I should have said like direct catalyst, it being the split. Like Adam Aaron had some comments. I think that's why AMC is moving here today. So a little less traditional catalyst, let's put it that way. But AMD's been far more impressive. And why? Because look how linear this move is. There's no outside of the open, there's no crazy parabolic, oh, it's gone too far, too fast type moments. It's just been a steady stream of buying. That's what you want to see, like the buy programs kicking in on this one. And then when it just put this capitulation candle in, a lot of times that's a good entry point. And I was thinking, like 1420, I like that 420 number. It's generally been a pretty solid place to buy. And you You don't make these things up. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that fundamentally there's a reason for that holding support. But guess what? One of the biggest pullbacks of the day was when it tried to break 1420. And then when it broke out that price, it consolidated with 1420 support before making the recent high. So when it dips back down on this big consolidation candle, on the biggest volume candle of the day, well, bouncing off 1420 is good enough for me. Like, I really don't care if there's no fundamental reason why people buy and sell en masse at that particular price. But the truth is, it happens. So if it happens, then I want to be part of it. And I just missed my chance to do so. I'll probably try it one more time here. I'll grab like 31s or 32s and then get run over. 20s will break and I'll lose 15 pennies on AMC. Or we can hold this and I can scalp it 2 to 1 to that high of the day. I still think 15 is a reasonable target, but it doesn't mean it has to happen today. That could be something we see on Friday. It could be something we see next week. I just know that when we see at 15 on AMC, that is going to be one that we're all over because it's got so much room. Finally holding, like, you look at what this has been doing, consolidating, small breaks, no follow through. You had this one great break off $11. The next day, just hard rejecting and smoking everybody when it tried to go through 15 bucks. And it crushed people when it tried to break 15 the last time. But it's been putting in higher lows. It's going to close above that 50 period moving average and then look like it's wedging up to 15, which does set it up for a crowded break at 15 bucks. But you know what? Just because the trade is obvious doesn't mean it's not good. So I'll be there when this does happen. For now, I'm buying in front of 1420s and kind of hoping I can get the same thing in GameStop as well. GME here in the middle on the daily chart, but it has been holding pretty strong here. It's 50 period. If you pull up the 50 period on your chart, I really don't use it for my main chart, but if you pull up a 50 period on your 3 minute, 1 minute, 3 minute, or 5 minute, you're going to find that it's been bouncing well in front of it. So I like the buys here off that 132 just to play that trend for a scalp trade into those highs. 135 has been a bit of a problem, so I think taking some out for $1, $1.50 before it gets to that high makes some sense. But I'm learning my lesson, and I kind of knew this to be true. You prefer buying dips and consolidations over breakouts a lot of times, especially when a stock is as spready as GameStop, because you take a break and you're just out of the money $1 almost instantly, which is no way to get into it. Whereas if you find a support level or a nice little trend, it's a little bit easier to dig in and hold on to the trade for the bigger move.
Yeah, for me, it's BABA. We started off with the Chinese names. I went into Chinese names. It's my second trade of the day. I noticed that it wasn't actually showing on the screen, so I jumped in and out of Apple real quick. Lost nothing because I got in and out at the spread. And here we are, and that's not Apple, that's the Apple chart actually. BABA, here we go. BABA on the short side, south of 123. I got into this earlier, and I was like, after a run like this and a failed attempt at 125 and then a breakdown through 123, I was like, you know what, it's worth a shot. Given how fast it's run, it's got a chance here at least down to 121 and change. That's the 1-to-1 in terms of risk reward. So let's take a look at it. Here we are, and it's done absolutely nothing since then. Obviously, it's bounced up a little bit, but at the same time, it hasn't gone far enough to the upside. Refuses to go down towards the bottom. So here we are on BABA, just as BABA decides to go for a nap here sideways north of 123. So BABA, given the way it's been moving, it can't do this not forever, but it can't do this the entire time. It's going to have to make a move, whether it's with the imbalances at 350 or it breaks down before then. So here we are kind of just waiting for BABA to make a move. That's my second trade of the day, right? And that's the thing with me looking for shorts in a resistance zone and not finding that many setups that are ready for shorts. So this is what ends up happening a lot of the times. You can either force the longs. If you had them earlier, you could justify the longs if you kind of close your eyes to the market. But for me, I wanted to pick up some longs if the market dipped. Market never dipped, so I took off to the upside into resistance, so I'm looking for shorts. And McDonald's was the first one, and that one actually is, I think did well after going through 53, coming back in. It's actually doing pretty well. But for now, we're going to hold on to BABA and see if we can't actually get a winner going, because at the end of the day, small losers aren't going to hurt. And a quiet market like this, every day you want to make money, but the odds are you're not going to make money every single day. So the days that you don't make money, you just got to make sure that you don't lose a ton. That's all it's about, right? As long as you maximize your way, I am sure you guys read about this all the time. As long as you maximize your gains and minimize your losses, it's easier said than done. But at the end of the day, you're gonna lose some days, and those days when you lose, you're essentially just making sure that you don't lose too much. I mean. So that's all it's about. So if today is going to be a losing day, let's just make sure that we're not going to lose too much, because Tuesday was a good day, Wednesday was a good day. Today is going to be somewhat of a small loser if BABA can't get going. Again, there's still some time left, so maybe futures picks up towards the end or something like that. But at the same time, just be aware that you have to look at your trading as a whole, not just each and every single day individually, right? That's what trading progress is when you look at it from the bigger picture. Same way you look at charts, zoom out a little bit. How are you on the week? How are you on the month? Is it trending or progressing in the right direction? If it is, then obviously you're on the right track. If not, maybe change something, adjust something, so you can actually get on the right track.
I got one adjustment I'm going to make, and it just looked like I was off a couple of days, so I was catching up on my reading on the way in. One of the things I read this morning, I was just putting in the chat, was I read, that certain somebody, it was Kramer, was talking about BNPL, buy now, pay later, and how there was still more pressure on some of those names. Great, lots of competition, I get that. Obviously their valuations got sky high, all that goodness, but you look at that break that happened in the market this morning, off a note like that, and you get a level like $20 is, on a firm, like I'm kicking myself and I'm just simply saying, okay, well, you have a bunch of people that are probably scared to death of this thing, thinking, dump it, right? And you've got this, you already had a wipeout bottom the other day, just like a lot of other stocks. Wipeout bottom is already in place. Consolidating higher and then reclaiming a 20 level, which had been a pretty good line in the sand. I mean, we're talking risk to reward here. It's just, no problem with the BOBA breakout or the AMD breakout, but what was wrong with the firm for just a simple reason that there's a bunch of people betting against it, and then you've got a clean sort of tight consolidation break. Now, what I'm looking at now in the afternoon is, well, if it gets to 24, I will want to short it because that was resistance the last time we were above 20 bucks. That's because I'm not going to buy the stock up here, especially with only about an hour to go in a power hour. I just don't feel like it's that kind of name. If the market goes higher, I'd rather play something else. Like, to me, it makes a heck of a lot more. This is going to sound weird to say this, but based on the way it trades, it makes a heck of a lot more sense to look for some dip buys in something like an AMC, which I've seen have a much better history where if you find structured longs in the last hour of the day, you're better to get paid off than in a firm where if you buy tops, quite frankly, in the last year, late in the day, you kind of get your butt kicked. Outside of, obviously, Tuesday it would have worked out for you, but everything topped out on Tuesday. So I'm going to stay away from this one unless I'm shorting 24s, but wow. Tight consolidation breaks like this after strong upward moves, we've had capitulation bottoms, have got to be traded, and that was one that we should have had. GameStop, give me a break, GameStop. I was sitting in front of 132s. Yeah, it never came that close. Looks like we got, 133 was about as close as it came down. That dip by, not as valid. Why? Because we're re-challenging that 135. So if we fail to break at 135, you could always get one of those bigger sell-offs and hunt back for a better price, maybe the 130s, maybe the 131s. But that 135 is about to be challenged. I'm not taking the break this time because, oh God, I hate the breakouts on this stock. They generally get me burned and in trouble. And that's the one stock that hit me today because I had too tight a stop on the short and then tried a breakout trade instead of waiting for a consolidation bottom, which, look, it consolidates, gives you the pre-market low, and then consolidates higher and breaks out from there. Like, that's a much easier trade. It's not that it's easier to take. I mean, 125 breaks the same thing as a 130 break. The difference being, it's very clear to see, okay, well, you take that break at 25. I know I'm wrong here, 123.5. Set it and forget it. You have so much room to the upside knowing that 130 is your resistance. It's just a cleaner trading opportunity, but you had to wait an hour and a half for it. And sometimes patience is the name of the game. You've got to be willing to sit on your hands. I wasn't willing to do so. I always get trapped into if GameStop's in play, I want to have that 930 move because if you get it right at 930, it will literally make your day. Well, guess what? It was my worst stock on the board today, and I think because I was impatient. That initial short off 130, I just wasn't willing to give it any time or give it any room to work, and that's what happens to you. You get burned when you show no patience.
Patience saves you money, also puts you into the right trades. So the one thing that's hard to learn, I think, as traders is patience. Patience. Everybody wants to be in something right now. They want to be making money right now. Sometimes things don't happen. A lot of the times things don't happen right now. You just got to wait it out. That's why sometimes you see me in trades, and I'll be in trades all day. I kind of, it's not for everybody. Everyone trades different. Obviously, the scalpers, you see Sean, he's in and out within seconds at times, could be minutes. For me, a short trade could be 10, 15, 20 minutes, and then I'll play it out throughout the entire day. I've had trades for 8 hours before. So start at the day, beginning of the day, it's a quiet market, then we eventually get going. It takes time, right? And this actually goes right into a question that someone else was asking me earlier is how do you feel about time stops? And I think Pratt has mentioned that before, and I said I don't like time stops. The reason being, just because the stock went sideways for a bit doesn't necessarily mean that the read is no longer valid. It's just taking a little bit longer than it needs. So everyone is going to have to kind of learn what works for them. My personal approach is I don't like time stops. The stock's going to go, or I'm going to run out of time. It's going to go in two different directions. Either I'm going to make money or I'm going to lose money, or essentially I run out of time, I guess, three directions flat. But I'm not going to interfere with that. If it gets going, then I'll adjust and I'll manage. If it loses, and I move on to another trade. Or if I run out of time because I gave it as much possible time as I couldn't do it anymore. Keep in mind, as a day trading firm, we are flat at the end of the day. So 4 o'clock equity, we're done. So 4:15 on the futures, 4 o'clock on the equity side, we're done. So if we don't run out of time, and I've done this on the show before too, where I've covered back-to-back days, I've run out of time one day, came back in the following morning, stock was in the same spot, picked up the exact same trade at the same price, and then let it continue its move as if I never got out the first day, and the move eventually happened. So that's how I trade. It's a little different from a lot of people, but at the same time, work what's best for you. GME was one of those trades where it's crazy how this morning when we were looking at it, we're like, this is the spot. If it's gonna rally, I remember saying this too. I'm like, if this gonna rally, it's gotta rally at 123, 124, and it instantly, right off the open. I'm like, if I were to break it down to the 5-minute chart, it actually never, oh, it did tick down. Okay, I thought it never ticked down, but it actually did tick down from 124 down to 122, and then shot up to 130, but that wouldn't have been the pickup. The pickup would have been the buy on the dip if you're willing to go right here at 124 on the secondary move at 1045 and then take a shot at the run to the upside. But again, I was so bent up about the shorts on the futures, and because of where they were, I wasn't really looking at GME. GME doesn't run on you guys were talking about American runs on Duncan and credit, Tyrone, I believe. GME does not run on the futures. GME does not care about the futures market. GME has its own little catalyst, own little moves. It's not affected too much. It's not part of these indexes. Actually, is it? The Russell 2000 it might be. But the major indexes that we're looking at, it's not really part of it. So if we're looking at the NASDAQ coming down, or if we're looking at the ES coming down, GME is not in there, so it doesn't really care. So here it is kind of running to the upside, doing its own little thing, and that's where you're getting. It's opening up the door now, especially on the daily chart, all the way up to mid 140s into the 150. See if we get that extension. Next point of interest is going to be through here, through those 150s into the 160s. See if there's a resistance level up here to work the range. If not, breakout north of 160, and you're probably looking at 200 next up. So GME is making some sideways moves, but if we can actually break these minor ranges, we can probably accelerate a decent amount here because it's been sideways for a while. But keep in mind, it's summertime. Are we going to get the volume? Normally, no, but if it's catalyst driven, if it's volume news driven, then you could get an easy acceleration to the top end. So here we are kind of just keeping an eye on GME, and I'm still looking at BABA, no, back is just drifting sideways. This is BABA right now. It's like, I mean, it's 3 o'clock. This is like when we get some volume going, right? But it could be to the upside, so I'm short, so who knows? We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, but there are some things moving here. And by the way, Ryan Myers with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Ryan. He's loving the AMAT call out yesterday. He's asking if you're thinking any swings. I mean, the obvious one everyone's going to be looking about probably is AMC. When you look at that, when you look at the 50 period moving average and just the risk to reward, if it breaks $15, I know that's going to be high on a lot of people's lists. People are asking me to look at IMPP several times today. Its volume is okay. IMPP's it's a 45-cent stock with 16 million in volume that has only moved about 10% at the most here today. So it's not a ton, and I don't love the trade there. 50 cents it has to get through for me to be interested in that one. But I know it goes when oil goes as well. So it's always on the radar when there's a big move in oil futures. But this GROV just made a new fresh high of the day, trying to get to $8. Now, I've had a mixed day on Grove. We had a long off $7. It tried to get to $7.50. I tried to hold out for $8 earlier and then got stopped out on it. And again, maybe just didn't give it enough room there. But if you go to let's forget about the daily chart. Let's go one back. If you look at what's happened to this stock, clearly, it's had tons of room to the upside. But this $8 level really looks like it could be a strong line in the sand, at least for this afternoon, anyways. But this Grove at $8 seems like this could be like a linchpin, and it's been super strong. And I look back, and you should always examine your trades and sort of look back and ask yourself why you do some certain things. And there is just zero reason to have taken this trade-off at 680. As a matter of fact, I have to go back and ask myself, I wasn't looking at the 50-period moving average. If anything, I should have had that stop maybe at like the 70 range, just 10 cents lower, give it a little bit more room, because that's making that wick bottom. I know it eventually went a few pennies lower, but that just stinks, because then you get a consolidation break, and the price area that we're looking to go long even consolidated again and held the same low. It's like you could actually have the same trade back into $8. From here, $8 break for a scalp trade, that's going to be an obvious one. Dips and buying anything at VWAP will be relatively obvious. That's about $7. So I like this Grove. It could be a good one for this afternoon. Unlike Alibaba, it's moving. And I want to trade things that are moving. AMD's even starting to slow down, realistically. And so, John, like saying I keep it real and accountable with the trade, part of the reason why I do that, it's like for myself. Because when you do something dumb, if you don't acknowledge it, which sometimes is like, saying it out loud, talking to it with somebody else. Luke and I had a great conversation about Tesla this morning. I missed out on Tesla. If you don't do that, then you're very unlikely to solve the problem, right? You just sit there. Don't surround yourself by people that agree with you. Always have someone that plays devil's advocate. And if it has to be you, that's even better. But to me, it's obvious. Like, you look back at this chart, like there is zero. There's nothing here that would tell me to cover that trade there. Not VWAP, not an even dollar level, like nothing. It just made a big wick down, breaking a minor support level, got to a random price, and I'm just sort of panicking out of the trade. But it happens to you, especially in these small caps. The one thing I will say about this growth that I should have mentioned is watch out for the spread on GROV. Now, it's trading routinely with more than a 1 cent spread, so it's like 5 or 6 pennies, which means if it breaks $8, probably gonna have to cross up to 8.10, 8.11, and be willing to pay that price to get an 8 break. It doesn't mean I'll get 8.10 if it breaks that level. It just means that I'm gonna have to cross up there to make sure I get it. I'd much prefer the dip buy, but Grove has been strong enough and the volume has been solid enough this afternoon that I don't mind taking that breakout style trade. I don't like all breaks, but they're not all created equal. And speaking of breakouts, I just want to come back to GameStop if I can here. Load, thank you. 135. I said I didn't want the GameStop break because you'll punch it and then be instantly out of the money. Well, it just did that test. It goes up to 135.50, which is good for nobody if you're day trading and taking a 135 long, and then immediately rejects and puts you back to the test. Now, it hasn't fallen apart. That's a good sign. It still has a chance to consolidate here and maybe retake the high. In some ways, it's almost better to take the current high of the day break, because at least if you take the 135.50 breakout here, you can give it to more defined range, essentially where it pulled back to when it broke 135. That's about $1 worth of risk, and you've got yourself a more sort of defined trade, as opposed to just blindly being in this 135 trade and deciding what to do. Put a time stop in. A lot of people do that on a breakout trade. I've done it in the past. I think you were mentioning it earlier. Sometimes you put these time stops. I don't like them either. And sometimes you have nothing to go by except for the time stop. You give it on a fast-moving break, 10, 15 seconds, sometimes a couple of minutes. I hate that. I'd rather allow it to try a failed break, shake out some people that might have just gotten the short again, thinking, hey, that's a failed break at 35. Let's short some 90s. Okay, well then, that trade I've been in it a million times. You're shorting it here when it reclaims 135 and your stop's at the high of the day. Now I know whose stops I'm running in that particular case, because it's those weak hands that are saying I'm at the top of a move and I don't want this going to 140 on me. And that gives you that push up. You get the first scalp trade out, now you're running with some house money, and then you can try and take that trade through the high of the day. But that makes a little bit more sense to me. And gonna go back over to very quickly here, guys. I know I'm chewing up a lot of time here. That Meta. I'm just going to adjust that offer. I've been sitting in front of 173 since 8 o'clock, but we did get a high to 172.72. Like, I missed this by 15 pennies, which is ridiculous. When it got up there, I should have been willing to just pay down for half the position, and then I could have added to it if it came back up. If we get anywhere close to that, maybe like 172.60, 172.50, I'm just going to jump into this trade. Like, it's ridiculous not to be sitting in Meta right now when I waited all day for 173, and it came within 30 cents, and I didn't even get a piece. So I like to get a taste on Meta for the short if we get anywhere close, maybe even within 50 cents of that level.
All right, I'm going through the chat. Obviously, I've got one position. It's doing its thing. I'm just going through the chat and answering some questions, some important questions that I think are very helpful for viewers here. Where can I find if my stock is part of an index or not? Google is your friend. So what I like to do is sometimes people don't know what to search for, right? So the way I would go about it is type in whatever you're searching. In this case, I'm using Bing. I say Google's my friend. I'm using Bing here because it's part of whatever the software here. Anyways, type in Russell 2000 or NASDAQ 100 or S&P 500 constituents. You'll have some names there, some websites here. I've noticed that on Russell's side, Market Screener seems to have a decent page where they have a list of all the companies in the Russell 2000, and then you just do a quick search here. And I looked for GameStop, and GameStop is right here. So GameStop is in the Russell, is AMC. AMC Entertainment is also in the Russell 2000. So quick solution to finding names there. And when it comes to the big names or the big indexes, I actually prefer to use, again, we're not affiliated with any of these websites. I'm just using them because I just run a quick Google search or Bing search or Bing it, whatever. And I looked for constituents by weight. This is by Slick Charts, by the way, and they do a pretty good job by updating this too. The reason I do this is because I want to see what the top weights are in these indexes. Apple, in the NASDAQ 100, Apple at the top at 12.72% and Microsoft at 10.9%. So that right there is about 23 and change. So a quarter of the market, essentially top two names, right, in the NASDAQ 100. So the other 98 names make up the rest of this market in the NASDAQ 100, and that applies to the S&P 500 as well. So it's a quick way to see what stocks are there, and if you want to look for your stock in this, if they're in the index and how much weight they have, there you go, quickly. That's the S&P, that's the NASDAQ, and that's also the Russell. I'm sure if you look for other indexes like the Dow or Dow 30 or whatnot, you can look for that as well if you decide to go down that road. And Ryan, I actually looked for a swing. And the only reason I even look for this is because what alerts haven't gone off today that I have set up? And that's the only reason I had this. And it's not a swing in the sense of, oh, it's setting up right now, but it's something to keep on the radar. UNH working against 520. It's an alert that I have for myself, but at the same time, it's not ready to go. It's right here. It's at the top end of its range. It's a top end of a level that it's been kind of working with since, the 28th here. It keeps coming up to this 520 and backing off. We went as low as 492 on the 5th as we bounce right back up into the 520. So in the event you get a 520 break, make sure there's enough for you to go for a long. However you decide to go for a long, my whole thing with these names is, when the levels are very obvious, it's easy to slip some stops by just going above it. So be very careful, but breakout trades or even a breakout failure against this 520, that's an inflection point on UNH. So there you go. Hopefully you can keep an eye on this one here. Even for me, the alert's still here, so if it makes a move tomorrow north of 520, I'll take a look at it as well on the intraday basis. But hopefully that helps you out there, Ryan, because I know the super chat I read, we saw the first half of it. I never realized the second half of it was, do you have any ideas for other swings? Hopefully UNH is good enough and that works out.
Exactly. And we're only at 500 likes, which is kind of crazy because my man over here correct me if I'm wrong here, but this is the first time I've ever heard someone say, Google is your friend, and then proceed to search on Bing.
Dude,
so first of all, if you weren't trying to do that, then I don't know. But if I thought that was funny as hell, man. I was like, hey, that's a good one right there. Because who the hell uses Bing?
Right.
That's one. And someone in the chat, this is why I love this community and why we need to grow it, because you guys crack me up all the time. Someone actually went out and found out that Bing is 2.7% of all traffic is on Bing. I wouldn't know something like that because it's useless. Well, it's an interesting fact. Bing itself is useless, I find. But look, Google, yeah, that's fine. There's all kinds of things out there.
I've always installed the Chrome, but then
I'm surprised you didn't say DuckDuckGo or something like that. For Bing, really?
DuckDuckGo. It's just default, and it's I gotta go. Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but I still gotta find. It's just Edge is right here, and Edge is always it's just right there. I just gotta go around and change the shortcuts and stuff. And I'm like, do I really care that much? I can just go on Edge and then go to google.com and then search it instead of pulling up Chrome. So that's how I work there, Neal. I make it harder on myself for whatever reason.
A lot of people in the chat are like, Neal knows about Duck. I'm not that old, man. Come on, son. Of course I know about DuckDuckGo. What are we talking about? Of course I know about that. No, but seriously, it's a fun community.
It still works though. It still exists, DuckDuckGo.
Of course it does. But so the other thing I love about this, why we need to grow this, is someone this morning, and apologies for whoever mentioned this stock and me forgetting about this, but Airbnb has been a super strong runner. But look at the move it's made since lunchtime, right? That's I mean, that's about as linear and strong as it gets. However, double top, it's gotten a bit top-ish here, and I just look at this high at 97, and that's begging to be faded off this 97 level. Super strong breakout trade, so kudos to whoever threw this one out there. But 97 on Airbnb, ooh, me likey that level, Brendo.
I was going to mention this FFIE, but I'm kind of taken by this Bing conversation, guys. FFIE just bouncing off 550 again. It's tested a couple times throughout the day today. Some volume came back in. But question, is there a Bing verb as there is a Google verb these days? Like you say, I'm going to Google something?
You're going to Bing it.
I'm going to Bing?
You're going to Bing it. Hey, listen, no. Brendan, when you're perplexed by the conversation that we're having, it means we're really out there in the weeds. And I think at this point, you just got to go with, I'm going to Bing it.
I agree. I'm going to Bing that.
There you go.
Here we are talking, first of all, I don't think anybody has actually talked about Bing for as long as we have today. Somebody somewhere should be paying us for all the free advertising that we're giving to the garbage that is Bing. But anyways, I guess that's not going to happen now that I keep trash talking it here, but I just put my order for Airbnb there. And realistically, I think in this market, we're actually about to take out the highs in the futures. The ES has taken the highs, I should say, cleared 39, and the NASDAQ about to follow suit. So if you got a long and you're long and strong, good for you. I've been sitting there covering every single long I had this morning. The last one was Bed Bath & Beyond, oddly. That was a good decision. I can't seem to get back into AMC. Now it's bouncing off 1440, but it has yet to take out the top. So there's still room to $15. GameStop 135.50 could be a bit of a play as well as it tries to go through that high. I was asked for clarification on Grove. So I want to, there's two ways I'll go long Grove. I'm either buying it off of 7 just for a nice little, what I should have done the first time, which is give it some room off consolidation by the dip, or I'm just going to take the $8 even break, and that's more of a scalp trade. I'll get a bunch out right away and then see if we can't hold. I think there's room, if you go to the higher time frame, there is room above $8, but I like both trades. You'll see I have a stop order above 8, I got a bid down in front of 7. I'm willing to take either one of those trades. And you were mentioning FFIE there, Brendo. That was a good one this morning. I think I got away from this one obviously too easily. I think it was Kai I was talking to in the chat that, when it bounced off 540, I put a trailing stop in on this thing, and I hate trailing stops because they always burn me when the trend doesn't break. And this is very similar, and this is where you get lazy sometimes. It's very similar to how I got it to grow for a bad reason. So I put my trail at $6, and it's sometimes you look at it, it's in the money, you're like, yeah, whatever, that's $6. No, it's not. I mean, the lower high was about 608, so that stop or trail should have been at 610. And just the littlest thing, and then you don't get back into it, and now this bloody thing is about almost a dollar to the downside, and giving up the ghost. As a matter of fact, it just took out the low, and I would say I want to short this thing off 550 now. That's a good 80 pennies from where we had it this morning, and we had to shoot it twice to try and actually get that short. So when you're in the money on something, sometimes you should be looking for reloads. Like that stop out, that's lazy. Well, you want it, when that does a rejection of that breakout, you want to be jumping back into that trade saying, okay, well, all of a sudden it's holding that higher low. That's a level that's still valid. The trend is still valid pulling back. This case, now I'm going to pay down and short it off of 550. That's the only thing that's going to be left. Got about 45 minutes to go. It follows the category of it's moving, so I want to trade it. AMD is starting to go the other direction where it's in the money but not moving. Good sign, the market's breaking fresh highs, and AMD isn't retesting its highs. I like that part of the trade. That works for me. It means that if we get a pullback in the market, AMD should fall back in, but at the same time, it is now just going sideways. So you got to find some things that are going there. That's why I went over to that Airbnb, because I know how strong it had been. And if it can continue that strength, that 97 level can come into play for a short trade. I could probably start jumping into that trade right now because it's not taking out the high with the market.
Yeah, as the market takes off to the upside, it's actually not the S&P, the NASDAQ is the one, obviously stronger, but also the one that I really want to pay attention to because remember, NASDAQ was right here, sitting underneath that 12,000. Once we got above, I was like, okay, are we going to confirm or fail? We confirmed and then decided to grind through. And this is exactly what you want in a market that's trying to take out a major level or a major area of volume, right? It's the slow, methodical climb up. It means we're chewing through any sort of sell side activity, and this is what you want. If you flash right through, or if you like take off right through it very quickly, it opens up a vacuum. I would rather see this kind of movement to knowing that this volume here has been taken out. So the way we're moving right now, it looks like we're going to take out that 160 soon. At this point, you can argue that this level's gone. This area is being chewed up. It's going to be taken out here. So next up after that 150 is obviously going to be the round number of 12.2, right? 12,200, and then 12,250 would take out the high from the 28th here, 27th, high from the 27th. So that's next up, but at the same time, trend is strong. We're going to mark off some levels to work with on the buy side here on the futures market. Obviously today with the sell side bias, I didn't get into too many trades on the long side because I was waiting for a dip, never happened. Also wasn't going to chase the longs, so no longs. Couple shorts, McDonald's somewhat flat, and then Baba here out 50 cents or so, 56 cents or so right now. And with the market climbing, I think 56 cents ain't too bad because, hey, this is what Baba's doing with the market at brand new highs. So relative weakness, if you want to call it that. So I'm going to keep an eye on this and see if I can't take it right to the end and maybe dump it in the imbalance. Because at some point, I would think that, hey, you know what? We're going strong to the upside, but as we get closer and closer to the end of the day, are we actually going to maintain this strength, or are we actually going to have some people taking profits as we get into the end of the day? Not everyone's going to be able to hold overnight, right? So intraday traders, short-term traders might be dumping soon as we get closer to these imbalances. So we'll keep an eye on these levels and see if we can actually pick up some on the dip, knowing that this market is taking out that resistance level. So now I can be like, you know what? I'm good to go on the long here. We've cleared this level out. We're going to get through it. I should be able to use that previous resistance as support, or even a dip here into the 12,000, knowing that's been confirmed. I can use to do a dip buy here around 12,000. On the equity side, of course, I'm going to just time it with the 12,000 round number and see if we can actually pick up on a dip. Do I want to chase into this? No. No, it's too late. One, it's too late in the day to chase into it. Two, it's too dangerous to chase into it right now into resistance. So I would rather, if anything, overnight, we either take out that 12,250 or we actually come back down towards 12,000. I'm good either way because I do want to go for longs on both directions here. Either a breakout north of 12,250 or even a dip buy into 12,000. I'm good for that. So today's move actually just allows me to sit out, watch the market, and get the idea that, you know what, the longs are good to go given how we're trading today. So coming in tomorrow, I'll have a better understanding of how to play it. Versus on days when you're confused, you just don't have to do too much, man. You're gonna lose, and you're gonna end up losing money, and it's just gonna be like, oh, I should just save this for another day when I had a better understanding of what the market is doing. And that's essentially my day today, right? It sucks for you guys because you guys are sitting me watching me make one trade in the morning, one trade in the afternoon. But welcome to my life where I only take a few trades a week, typically on the futures, because you don't get too many trades on the futures that often. So here we are kind of just waiting a little bit here. And the imbalances should make things exciting as, you know, the market being up 2.3%. That's a pretty big deal on a market that's in not holiday hours, but summertime hours, right? So it should be an interesting close, at least, bring some more volatility than we've seen so far during the day.
Here's what I will say, and this is, you guys get a trade getting Arun every single day this week, because like, you know, the futures are sort of the catalyst for the market and derive our direction. But in the years I've been doing this, like, you know, since the early 2000s, not exactly. Some of you guys probably know how long, I suppose. So I'm not dating myself by saying 03. I've known a few futures traders, and lots of them have come through the trading floor. And the truth of the matter is, like, there's been very few that have been successful. Very, very, very few that have been successful and still doing it after all this time. But there's one thing that they have in common, the ones that have failed, it's that they try to trade every single day. It's a day trader. And if you're not willing to sit in futures trading specifically, if you're not willing to sit out days, that's almost been like that red herring. It's like you're just too active and you end up getting stung. So take that, and that's very, very useful advice. It's a great way to start, I think, for a lot of traders. You mentioned BABA as relative weakness. Well, I'm going to throw you Pinduoduo here. The first thing I noted, well, not the first thing, but one of the first things I noted when I looked at the sell-off in the Chinese listed names was just how much bigger the move was downside yesterday in Pinduoduo in particular. And I remembered this from the last time I tried a long in Pinduoduo when it was up in the mid-60s, right? Like it gave you the breakout trade, and when that rejected, I mean, you got destroyed if you dip by it and tried to average into it, and then it was just an obvious reversal to the short. And I saw a similar move when I looked at the chart yesterday, and I look at this, the market breaking out to those highs, Pinduoduo struggling at those highs, trying to hold VWAP, trying to get off the schneid here, getting up to like 62.5 and then going sideways. If this breaks down, this has all the room to go right back to those lows, and it's showing you that weakness. But it's got to be below VWAP for an entry point. Much different from Airbnb, where you step in front of and believe me, this trade could have come up pretty quickly, step in front of that big 97 level on a strong mover, and essentially all I'm saying is, okay, well, look at us on the daily chart. You've got this multi-day high. If it breaches, I'm out. If the short works here, it's got room to go. What was the logic behind this, or at least it looked a lot better before it broke that top recently, was the market was breaking new highs and we were not taking out that top on Airbnb, and we have overhead resistance. Now, this is one of the stronger names, so I got to go with a hard stop here. I don't want to get stubborn about this. We'll only risk about 40 pennies. Sure, if it pulls back to VWAP, you're talking about a $2 move. We also only have 40 minutes to go. We are flat. As day traders, on a prop floor here, we have to cover our positions by the end of the day. So this could break 97 and go like 5-10 cents and then reject and then come back down, or even close at 97. But I'll just have to revisit that trade tomorrow if that's the case, and we're still looking at 97 resistance. I have to have a hard stop on it today. And the same thing goes with like anything that we do take, AMD in this case, I'm trying to get that short to work. It's still working in the money despite the market ticking higher. I want GameStop to make this break of the high of the day here. I didn't like the 135 break, but now it's coiling up here, holding that 135.50, which gives me a more solid entry if it wants to go. But we're running out of time for that to happen. Grove is running out of time for it to make that breakout. It can't get through $8 once again, so going to go back over to the dip buy here in front of 7 even. But I'm not taking that break if it happens at 350. I'm not taking it, maybe even 345, I might not take that trade as well. And Steve G, don't goad me into looking at Sundial, because every time I look at Sundial, it's like, I always get tricked into it. It's like, okay, well, it's not going that day. There's no volume that day. So here I am saying, look at Sundial, and then once again I pull it up, and I see it only going sideways. Everybody that's been watching our YouTube channel for a while knows that when Sundial moves, I love trading it. My first area of profitability as a day trader with the company was actually trading in penny stocks. And it was just I'm not saying it's what came natural to me, but it's what I made money doing. And in this business, you do what you make money doing, not what you find interesting or what you find fun. Because when I sat down here on the prop floor, first thing I wanted to do was draw trend lines all over the place, have indicators everywhere. I was trading AMAT, Oracle, Microsoft, and Cisco. Those were the first 4 names. I was profitable after a couple of months, but I couldn't take that next step. It said, hey, based on your risk profile, you're pretty good, support and resistance and sticking to your levels. Trade some of these small caps, and within 1 month, I was trading penny stocks and doing really well at it. And so that made money for me, so I stuck with it. So anytime I see something that pops up and kind of is old hat for me, I want to jump to it. But I see nothing happening on Sundial. So you got me to look. Congratulations to you. I have now chased Meta. I said I would do this. Give it a little bit tighter to that, a little bit further away from that 173. Just get into this trade off 172.5 after missing it the last time. So I'm now short in Meta. Shorts off highs of the day at this point because I can't seem to get any dip buys. We'll see if they can follow through, but we're definitely know where our stops are going to be here. 73 on Meta has been a huge level. I'm going to stick with this one till it breaks, and I bet you if we open above that level on Meta tomorrow, I'll probably be long in front of it because it's been rejecting so many times with $20 follow through that if we get above that price, sky's the limit.
And that applies for a lot of names too, not just Meta. Meta obviously reaching that one level there, but for me, Amazon's been obviously on a tear here, up, up 2.26% on the day here and running strong. But for us, it was this earlier move around that 115 and change. If we got above it, there was a chance, but then the market wasn't, in a spot where it was worth taking the shot on the long. Anyways, regardless of that, of not having the trade today, Amazon now has established itself a nice little support base to work with. It's right there, around 115, going all the way down to 112. It's going to be a 3-point range. We're sitting at 116 and change. So if this market, and this is what I would look forward to, another overnight rally doesn't help us to pick up any trades on a dip. But if this market kind of dips down a little bit overnight into this 115 and change, we can perfectly use this as a nice little support base. Trampoline bounce back towards 118, 120 or so. But Amazon having put a nice little bottom here earlier down at 102. Nice little support base built around that 110 into 106 after that. And here we are kind of getting that acceleration north. So you're getting that stability and that base being built. And that's on a 60-minute chart. If I were to break this down to a daily on Amazon, look at where it's going to. It's going to the 120 area. Well, it's not going to, but it's around that top end of this previous resistance level. Also going back to the late May, north of 120, we stalled out. That's still a ways away. So that's why I would rather dip by this versus chasing into a long because of what's above us. So you get a much better risk reward if you were to catch it closer to that 115 versus if you start looking for longs now. If you already had the longs down here when it was basing out around the 100, you're sitting pretty, right? You're sitting pretty because you can just manage this through 110 now at this point. So Amazon definitely doing some work here, trying to get through, and this market is actually helping this, the case here as it blows through levels. NASDAQ specifically now working through that 150, gone through that 150. Next up is that 12,250 mark. End of day, there's bound to be some selling. You're starting to see it now come out. That's perfectly fine. That's healthy. That's part of a healthy market, right? It's not going to go up forever. You actually need some dips to come through to allow some buyers to get out and new buyers to step in. And that allows for a secondary trend or a third trend or whatever. But that's the way I would look at it. And Joe, I see your comment. You need me to program an AI robot to think the way I do. I am the robot. I am the robot. I've been called that by so many different people. So unfortunately, I am the robot. There's no robots being programmed here.
So the whole Arun's a robot thing, I wanted to say I coined it, but I remember, and the reason I thought about it was, I've told the story of Arun's first trade, so I won't go on it over and over again. But the first thing I noticed about Arun when he would sit on our floor was it was impossible to tell. And this is actually true. If you're ever looking, whenever I'm looking at the floor risk, when I'm risk managing, or when I used to do a little bit more of it, because the show takes up my time now, you could always sort of look at somebody and without looking, are they in a big position? Is it against them? Are they in the money? Like, how are they feeling? Just look at their face. Yeah. Look at the way they're sitting. You could tell with everybody. With Arun, I could not tell based on his demeanor, how he was sitting down, how he would look. Is he in the money on a trade? Is he in a big trade? Is he in no position at all? There was no difference. Like, how could a person be the difference between max risk for them and no position, or up max or down whatever? You couldn't tell, and that's why we call him a robot. And most people, trust me, that is not going to be you trying to be that. Forget about it. You got to be yourself, but you are striving for that level of cold-blooded like analysis, cold-blooded execution. Keep your emotions out of it. It's fine to celebrate after if you want to go ahead and do that, but not try to be overly emotional when you're making decisions, because that'll lead to poor ones. We did just get into that met. I talked about not waiting for that 173. It put in a high at 172.70. Hate these wicks on the chart. They screw the scaling up there, but 172.72 in front of that 50 level. So I took the curl. Now that the market's coming back in, I was gonna get more shares out here, 170, 180 or so, and just take that almost 70, 80 cent winner. Forget about it. Now I actually want all the way down to 170, 171.20. Let's get a buck 25. If the market does want to fall from here, I like that meta trade, and I'm gonna hang on to AMD as well. It's Airbnb which is giving me the most trouble, I think, at this particular point. And if you're still watching those meme stocks, oh goodness, I was about to say, AMC about to come into that 1420 level. A GameStop pullback here, it's at about 134, but AMC now screaming into that 1420. I didn't take it the first time. I didn't get it the second time, paying up to 31s. It's giving you a decent pullback trade. This is a vastly different entry point here. It's not the one capitulation candle where you get an instant relief because it just had a liquidity vacuum downside. And this is not a higher low consolidation. This is now retesting a support level. So I'm probably going to have to give it right to that 1420. And either way, I'm going to be covering shares up to 14.5. It doesn't matter if I think the stock can close, but if it closes above 14, do I think it has a chance to break 15? And while I take that trade tomorrow, sure. But that doesn't really matter when there's a half an hour left in the day. I've got to take profit in front of 1450. That's 2-to-1 if I take that trade, because my stop's at 20s. I don't have time to put a stop at 14 even. I don't have time to like that 1380 level, which was a big price for this stock, 1380, a couple of weeks ago. I can't really hold it to that level. It's only 30 minutes left to go. I have to have a tight stop on it, which is a downside for a day trader. But sometimes it actually keeps you more disciplined. because it means that I don't sit there averaging into the trade, trying to force it to work when I'm catching this move way too late in the session. So that's the only long I have on. Unfortunately, I'd love to see a few other ones out there, but not really seeing a heck of a lot that we like to that upside. I talked about GameStop out there just a little bit, but I wanted to come, back over to Bed Bath & Beyond, which was the other squeeze name today. Since it got to that $6 level, is even weaker than the others. However, it's holding up pretty well. That breakout that we took off 540 on the higher time frame, that was resistance at the open after its earnings at 540. Well, it's holding above that price. So that's a pretty good line of support being held at its current breakout price. Whether it manages to do so the rest of the day, who knows? But if it does, then I still like that level tomorrow on Bed Bath & Beyond. Always willing to revisit a level the next day. So check back in. Is it still on my radar? Does it still have support there potentially? Answer for now is yes, but I'll check back in at the close.
I was going through the comments when you were talking about emotions. I saw one that was hilarious. I love this one. Arun has the emotional range of an ice cube. Yeah, you got me on that one. That was good. It takes a lot to get to me. That one was hilarious, I found. But yeah, with the market coming back in a little bit here into the 3,900, I'm wondering now, late session selling going on, profit taking happening. That could be a nice little opportunity to do some pickups on the buy. I would wait a little bit more, though. I don't know if I actually want to step into it right away. But right now, sitting at 39.07, if it comes a little bit more, I think there could be an opportunity for some buys here on the futures market. We'll see how this one plays out. Because keep in mind, 20 minutes before these imbalances come out, right? So with 20 minutes, there's a lot of time for a lot of things to happen. We saw what happened yesterday when the market came off aggressively. I think it was like 340 or so. And this market just absolutely got rocked to the sell side. We were thinking it was going to be somewhat of a buy imbalance, and it ended up being a sell side. Well, I think it was a buy imbalance, but the market just decided it wanted to nosedive first into a buy imbalance. So it was aggressive. Let me see if I can pull the charts for anyone who missed it. It was a nasty move right at the end here. Right here, look at that, from 975 all the way down to, at 40, we started at 945, and we ended up at 860. So a decent move to the downside. I worry about that. Remember, yesterday was a decent run after we broke the range, right? So today it's been a run all day. I just want to wait until the last possible second to see if there's an opportunity for that kind of a move where I can pick up some longs. If I can't, we'll back off, right? It's fine. There's no need to rush anything. There's many trades in a day, not trades in a day. There's many trading days in a month, right? So you just got to choose which ones you want to fight. You can't fight every battle. You just got to choose the ones that you have a pretty good chance at winning, and the ones that you don't want to get involved with, don't get involved with, right? So for me, with this market, if it can come down a bit more, I'll get involved. If not, I'll come back tomorrow. I just got to be very accurate when I do hit, instead of trying to hit everything. So we're going to wait a little bit more. If it comes down a little bit, gets into range, we'll take a shot at it. If not, we'll come back tomorrow and figure out what we're going to do tomorrow.
Yeah, there's one thing you definitely should hit, and I'm saying it again. And I even said this in the morning show, right, that I actually have something semi-prepared that I want to go to, which is dropping a few bars again. But there's just no way it's happening if we can't even get to 1,000 likes today. Like, Arun smiled.
Yeah. That's why it was a great comment, because you got me to smile.
This guy, I don't know if I've seen this guy crack up or smile on camera very often, but if you get Arun smiling, then you know we're having a fun time here. Like, AMC's up 15%. The market is at the high of the day. If you're not feeling good, Arun is smiling, and we can't get to 1,000 likes. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm telling you, I got a big pun one that I want to do tomorrow, but it's not going to happen because you guys can't get us there, and I'm sad about it. And as a matter of fact, speaking of that, and guess what? We're about to get on the offer here and take some of that AMC out, so it looks like that bounce is going to end up working out here for us. Meta's going to give us a potential reload. There's still trades to be had in the market, guys, and it's all about taking advantage of them and just sort of trading within your levels, within your means. That's what we talked about. I went back to the well on Meta because that's the first level that we like for resistance out of everything that we saw today. And you had to wait almost all day long to catch that short. But that's what patience is about. Arun taught me patience, that's to be sure. And hopefully he's teaching you guys that as well. But man, I can't even believe it. It's like, how do we not get to 1,000 likes when Arun is out here smiling, cracking jokes? And we love it that you guys crack us up. I mean, that's one of the fun things about doing this, to be honest with you, is you get days like, where the market might be going sideways a little bit, or maybe you're having a good or, bad day or whatever it might be. But then, this crowd is always pretty amazing. We love to see it. And look, I haven't traded Tesla once today. That 705 break eluded me. I had a conversation with Luke about it. I should have had it, but I was looking at other stocks this morning. And it's not an excuse, it's just the truth. At 9:30, I was already in 3 positions when the market opened, and I had semi-aggressive orders on like 2 or 3 others. And when you hit that 5 or 6 limit, it's like, nah, I don't want to be getting into Tesla as like the 7th stock I'm trying to trade at 9:30, but it should have been. This is another name that's trying to get above that 50-period moving average. You're seeing it really, really coiling up here. A couple of higher lows. Maybe we can close eventually above that 740 level. Like, it's looking to go. Every other EV name the Chinese ones at least, have shown you that strength. Now you've got Tesla trying to join that party. It'd be fun to see it happen. Up 5% is not a bad start. It just feels like, look, I'm not one of those people that's perma-bull. It has to be, we're making bottoms left, right, and center. But at least a solid temporary bottom with a good follow through, which a lot of these stocks haven't done. A lot of names are on the verge of doing that, where you might get at least a push up, testing halfway or back on a run to that 200-period moving average, before likely you get a bit of a dip back down. But that slow grind starts with something like this, reclaiming its 50-period moving average. Because there's only 25 minutes left in the day and 15 minutes to imbalances, like we said, scalp trades will have to rule the day, so I got to take some AMC out here because 1-to-1 has to be good enough when I got 20 minutes left. But I don't want people to lose sight of this because it's not often that I'm liking AMC for multiple days. Like, just have a quick look at this $15 level on the daily chart. Like, look at the wick top when it broke it last time. And then since then, it has been putting in higher lows. And now above that 50 period. This is just dying to make that break for tomorrow. So if you're not starting your day off by at least having it on your radar, then I don't know what you're doing here today. I'm not the biggest, I'm not gonna sit here and be a, the cheerleader, AMC, let's go apes. It's not necessarily me, but darn it, when it sets up and it's up 15% today, you gotta have it on that radar. And thank you guys for getting us to that 1,000 likes. Step 1, do it again tomorrow and you get some big pun at the close. Brendo?
Just watching gold back to the upside here. A couple of specific metal resource prices bouncing back today, as we've been talking about a little bit today. GLD, though, popped up on some volume here at a decent level, guys. 162 and change. Trying to get higher here for gold heading into the close.
Yeah, gold up 1.6%. I'm looking at GDX as a gold tracer, but all markets up. This is weird to me. This is just the market dynamics changing, but it used to be a situation where when one thing went up, the other thing went down, right? Gold was the inverse play, but now they're all in line, and this is just markets changing, evolving over time. And now you have S&P up, NASDAQ up, crude up 4%, and then GDX or the gold miners at least. You can also look at the gold futures contract if you wanted to. GDX up 1.6%. So there's a lot of activity in one direction, providing opportunity for moves tomorrow. They're expanding levels, taking out resistance levels. All good things are being done today. If you weren't able to participate, like I wasn't able to participate in this long today, still working that short. The short the BABA short is up 12 cents right now as we get closer to the end of the day. Go figure, right? So we're kind of just setting up trades for tomorrow. Not everything is ready to go. There's some alerts, like I mentioned, UNH. Maybe that 520 can get going. That's been relatively weak today. But other names that have been strong. We've set up Amazon already. I've talked about Amazon. Where Meta potentially has some, support bases built. Apple working some nice levels too as it rallies to the upside here, clearing that 144 area. Now, if we were to come back in, provides an opportunity for a dip buy. That's what we're looking forward to, right? Today, if you weren't able to capture it, there's going to be another opportunity in the event it dips, and that's what we're looking forward to. So don't fret if you have missed out on today's move, because there's always another day. That's the thing with the market is I should say that. As long as you have money available to play the game, then there's always another day. But then your job, if you want to play another day, is to protect your capital as much as you possibly can. So don't be reckless. And if you're caught up and you're in the camp of one stock only and that's going to go up forever, then you're not deploying your capital properly. but be aware that there's tons of names to choose from in the market, and there's going to be something that sets up on a different day, whether it's a multi-day move or it's an intraday move like today. Whatever the case is, just be aware. Protect your capital so you can play another day, and when you do play, you got to make sure that you execute as good as possible. I'm just watching this market fall off.
As well as possible.
As well, yeah. No, I got caught off by the market falling off here, so I just put in the closest word that came to my head, or the first word. See, I can't even talk anymore. The first word that came to my head, into my head. Market falling off here. This happened yesterday too, and yesterday when it happened, it fell a decent amount, as I mentioned earlier on the futures, and now we're getting a nice sell-off here as the market backs off these 10s and into the 05s. Okay, I can work with this. Remember, I wanted to do some buying on a dip into the close if I can find it. And this kind of a dip kind of opens that door a little bit more. I think if we get closer to the 3900s, I'd be open to the idea a little bit more. But for now, we are definitely appreciating this sell-off coming in because Baba's, the short is working out, and the futures, I might get an option or an ability to get into a trade here on the futures on a dip buy.
Here we go. I'll hit it for you, man, because like you said, the market's starting to come in here, so we're getting the downside. And you're only in a Baba short outside of AMC, which I don't think, probably not going to follow the market. It seems to still be strong. That's the only long. AMD starting to make that next leg down. I was not willing to give this trade up. It gave you a chance to maybe just say, okay, market testing the highs. We'll take what we can get. Nah, I'm sticking to that 79 level. We definitely like it. Meta is starting to work back into the downside as well. So you pick your spots in the stocks that we know had some resistance, 80 even. I mean, that's just a nice little round number for us. But Met off that 173 area, certainly working into that downside. It's probably across the board. However, when I did step in front of Airbnb, got to keep it real. 97 broke, and you want relative strength. I just showed you these names coming back. The futures dropping back off. Almost everything else I can look at is falling back down. Airbnb is still breaking out. But that's why you have a stop. That's why you adhere to it. Like, there's no averaging, oh goodness, I'll just get more shares. It's got to turn, the market's coming down. No, it doesn't have to do anything. The market might be falling here and pulling back, but that doesn't mean your short has to work. Airbnb is relatively strong. I shorted it off a level. It broke that level. I'm out. Last time I checked, if you want to get paid, or as one of my favorite rap groups once said, if you want to get that glow, well, then you've got to make sure that you're not losing first. You want to make money, first act is do not lose it. And that means adhering to your stops. Because if you're hanging on to this as the market falls there saying, well, it has to happen, well, you're just losing a bunch of money there. And Alan Atkins, I forgot totally about Coinbase and that double top. Bitcoin breaking out a little bit here late in the session. Coinbase had a double top there. I didn't love the level at all. I like Coinbase at 60. That's been pretty good. 55 was a pretty good level, at least going back a couple of weeks or so ago. But this is a name on a huge break, up 10% today. And when this thing goes, like, it has got some serious momentum to it on that break. So I'm going to have this on my radar. Instead of looking at 55 as resistance, I'm now putting it in for support tomorrow. If we can continue that, I think it's going to be a fantastic one for sure, guys. But there's a lot out there that is moving. Bitcoin is making power moves. We cannot be ignoring that at all. I just like some of these shorts because of what the market was at going into these imbalances here at 350. We do have to start thinking about getting out, and getting out also means of this AMC long, which we're not getting 15. I shouldn't say that. We're not likely to get 15 today. And if we do get it, my guess is you'd probably see it in the afternoon. But as it creeps toward that high of the day, I need to get out in front of the high of the day. And maybe it goes higher, maybe there's more to it here. But the dip buy, I was late to it. I didn't catch it when I put in this candle here, so I wasn't able to take this trade 2 or 3 times. I only got it the once, and we'll just have to let it pay us off. It's the shorts I think I'm holding into to 350 or tighter to that 350 or tighter to that imbalance number coming out here. And it's not going to be the AMC where I'll take it out. I'm canceling GameStop orders. I don't want to take a high of the day break at 342 or 345 or whenever it does happen, but that's still very much in play for tomorrow. You know, we come back and revisit these trades. The market is giving you opportunities every single day. One of the worst things you can do is have a short-term trend, have a good price level, have a good idea that you don't revisit the next day, because often it is just that simple. You like to trade today and it sets up tomorrow, well then take it tomorrow too. Because I promise you in the long run, it ain't about what you did today or that one time you took the trade. It's what would happen if you take that trade 10 times out of 10 when it sets up. What's good in the long run? Is it a good setup? Well, then you take it every time you see it. Because when there's a positive expectancy, you want to make sure you're taking that trade. So if you've discovered that, you want to be in there every single time. That's how it works. Nobody wins 99% of the time. You're happy to win 55 or 60% of the time in trading if you have good risk to reward. But that only works if you are actually taking all those setups. If you start overanalyzing it and not taking all of your positive setups, well, then that's where you get yourself into trouble because it skews all of your results. So if I get the chance to trade GameStop tomorrow, we want to break above that 135.50, great. If we want to find support at 123, fine. 15 break on AMC, fine. We'll take that tomorrow as well. Coinbase holding at 55, fair enough. Meta, I 100% will be shorting Meta again off of 173. There's no chance that I won't be looking for the same short tomorrow, unless, of course, we gap above that price and we can't take it, in which case I'll just try to go long off that level as well. But that's a big one. You got to come back to it. 5 minutes till imbalances. I got to cover some trades here. AMC running out of steam, but I still love it.
Yeah, and that's the thing with trades. You don't forget about them. Just because you ran out of time doesn't necessarily mean the trade's over, right? You just need to come back to it. Or if the stock was hot today and then you move on to something else, don't forget about the names that you've traded in the past because there's going to be some opportunities going forward. So the way I come to it is that I have a list of names that I will always check every single day. Then we're going to go through the trade list or the watch list that we put out in the mornings, right before the show comes on in the mornings. And I'll take a look at the names that are moving that Brendan has done the research on and figured out that, hey, this one's going to be interesting today. So that's how I approach it. I have my own list, and then I'll do that first, the primary list, and then I'll do the ones that are kind of just in and out of my focus here a little bit. So for now, it looks like the market's stalling out here in front of these fives, underneath these fives. I don't know. There's a lot of back and forth. We're not going to do anything with the futures. This is not the action that I want. And the BABA is, I walked away from BABA. I'm like, if this market's coming down and I'm thinking long maybe on the futures and this BABA is at the bottom end of its range, do I really need to hold on to any more? I've held on to it all day and you want to take a shot at the bottom of the range now? Go for it. But you're going to go for it without me, so I'm good. I'll take the exit. I'll walk away. I knew that it's going to be a potential miss, but at the same time, I run the risk of taking this into the imbalances, which I do not want to do. After a strong day like today, and that's a big if we get a positive imbalance, this is going to become a problem on BABA. It's up 2.85% on the day. You get a positive imbalance. This thing's going back to the top end of range, bouncing right off the bottom. It's too much of a risk. I'd rather just take my, what did I get on that? 10 cents. I'll take my 10 cents, walk away. It covers the cost of the trade, maybe some money for a pineapple pizza. That's about it. We're going to walk away from that and call it a day and see if we can't make a move on the futures. But again, the futures aren't doing anything either. So I'm probably pretty much done at this point, but I'll go into futures are not.
That was entirely unnecessary, by the way.
What, the pineapple pizza?
Yeah, why'd you even say that?
Why? I like pineapple pizza.
No, you don't.
Of course I do. Just because you don't like pineapple pizza, it doesn't mean that you need to hate on the fact that I like pineapple pizza. Pineapple pizza is amazing. For all you haters, you guys need to just chill. You guys need to try it and then just, get along with the rest of the crowd, man. A lot of people like pineapple pizza. I don't know why there's so much hate on the pineapple.
Dave Chappelle said it best.
What did he say?
That issue's gross. It's gross.
How is it gross? You know what? Not
that he said that about pineapple pizza. He should have said it about pineapple pizza.
The pineapple pizza conversation is itself an entire podcast. We can go back and forth on this for a while.
When are we doing the hot wings thing, by the way?
What hot wings thing?
We're supposed to,
that's you guys. That's not me.
I think you should take part. I just remembered this. I have to have this conversation. We have to wait for Sean to come back. But I just remembered we're supposed to be doing a hot wings challenge, and now I have to try to remember that. This is way off topic, but pineapple pizza is gross. There was no need to bring it up. I think the chat mostly agrees with me.
No, they don't. They do not agree with you, unfortunately.
Okay, well, first of all, if you're, I'm not Italian. Sean's Italian, so I don't know why
he loves pineapple pizza, though.
It's not a real pizza. There's pineapple on it.
Who cares if it's not real?
The way I look at it is, what would happen to you if you were in Italy right now and you ordered pineapple on pizza? They would slap you in the face.
Probably.
Despite the fact that you look like you kicked like 20 dudes' butts. And they'd tell you that's ridiculous, and they would not do it. And so as far as I'm concerned, it just doesn't belong on a pizza. It's not good. And don't get me wrong, I love pineapple. I got West Indian blood. The best pineapple you will ever taste in your life comes from the island of Antigua, where my family is from. And it is life-changing. It's delicious, man, but it just doesn't belong on a pizza. I don't care if I got pineapples growing everywhere. And all I had was like Tony Montana's like octopus everywhere, had that coming out of my pores. If I had pineapple coming out of my pores, I wouldn't put it on a pizza, and I darn sure wouldn't eat it unless I lost a bet. Because I love making fun bets because it's more fun than betting money. I think betting money is lame. And one of the things I like to do is we did a pineapple pizza bet, and that was the last time I had it was live on this show because I forget what it was. I said, this stock won't do this. I lost it. I had to eat it. Lucas got it, and it was disgusting. But anyways, that's enough of that. We're actually going to get these imbalances, which means I got to cover some AMD here. I'll hold on to Meta, but I'm going to take the money and run here on AMD before these imbalances. Meta's a bigger level, so I'll hang on to that short. I got a Fife short off 50s, but if that can't hold, I'll just get quickly out of that one. But imbalances in a few seconds here, Brendo.
Arun. Yeah. So imbalances here, what are we looking at right now? 30 seconds before these imbalances come out. And this market, again, attempting to bounce, but not getting a whole lot of traction. We'll see if these imbalances are positive enough to run this market to the upside. For now, it doesn't look too great. But at the same time, you never know. That's why I got out of BABA here, trying to avoid a mess of a potential downward move. I don't know. It is all over the place. Let's actually look at the futures market and see how this one reacts here if the imbalances come out. We are sitting about 2 seconds left, and we are up, looks like. Yep, up and back down to the downside. So not a whole lot of action here, but positive. Let's see what the sizes are. Intel, 2.2 million to sell. Ford, 1.3. Cisco, I mean, these are all like fairly thick names that aren't going to do a whole lot. So
I'll tell you what just happened, though. So I get out of AMD short, hold on to Meta because I like that level way better, and then of course it's like a chip name, a couple of chip name that has the sell imbalance, Intel there. So I'm going to need to get out of Meta. Obviously, I still like the level. We'll get back into it probably tomorrow, but I'm just willing to take this out. I understand that the imbalances came the other way, and there's not much I can do about it, but I can still cover it here for a slight win. We wanted to hold through to VWAP. We're not going to be able to get it. FFIE doesn't care. Look, at 550 broke early on in the show. I think I mentioned this probably around 3 o'clock or a power hour when it broke down here at that price, that I like that short. Well, it came right up to that level. Couldn't break it. I got 47. So I can just have a stop at 50 or get out at the end of the day. AMC is holding up, so I get to actually hold on to AMC into the close because it's still above that 1420 level, and we're still in the money on this thing with 20 cents or so. So now I have a chance to just sort of roll it into the close. I'm going to keep trailing it higher, so if it gets below 1440, I'm out. Otherwise, I'll try and ride this to the high of the day. Hopefully, it can get there. Kind of a binary trade for me at this point. I'll keep trailing it higher, hold on to it, hopefully right until that end of the day. And please say that isn't so. What did I just see in our chat? Get the heck out of here. This happened like, nobody said that James Caan passed away.
no, they did. Someone
said
did.
it?
Yeah. There was some back and
That
forth about
sucks,
James
man.
Caan.
Like, Godfather 2 is one of the greatest movies ever made. If not, it's definitely top 5. But James Caan is probably the most underrated actor in the entire series. Like, him playing Sonny is like if you want to appreciate movies, just watch him playing Sonny Corleone. That was a fantastic movie. Man, that sucks. He was amazing. I loved him in that film. And like, Sonny was one of those characters that it was easy to hate him. But the more you watch the movie, the more you understand that like he makes it every bit as much as the Don himself or Michael Corleone. Like, without Sonny, a lot of the plot doesn't go anywhere. He did a fantastic job. That really sucks. Brendo.
Just looking at Levi's here, guys. There's not much in the way of earnings tonight, but if I can bring up the chart, I can show it to you. There is this, LEVI, going to report aftermarket tonight. There was maybe an imbalance on this. My chart is not loading. There we go. You can see a huge volume spike there when the imbalances came out for LEVI.
Yeah, my charts actually crashed on me.
That's always fun.
Yeah, that's always fun. It's not that important because I already have the e-signal charts up, so it's not the end of the world if they crash. But going back to BABA, and now that the futures are done with, they're back at 6 and change. They're just flirting around back and forth. Keep in mind, though, with these imbalances, 350 was the first release. 355 is the floor update. So the interest from the floor brokers and whoever they represent and the orders being sent there that data gets inserted into the imbalance locator or our imbalance locator and the imbalance feed at 3:55. So quick explanation, now that we have the data already, be aware that the reason we have this data is so we can see which side the pressure is going to be after 3:55. So we know that Cisco at the moment has a sell side imbalance, that's this S right here, of 2.73 million shares. So they want to still sell 2.73 on the official closing price. Remember, all these orders are tagged as on close, and then they've already matched. So there was more to sell, but they've already found buyers for 3 million shares. They've still got to find buyers for 2.7. So knowing that, there's probably going to be some sell side pressure into the end of the day, but be aware that at 3:55, floor brokers send their interest, so it's easily possible that the floor has interest for about most of this, 2.7 million. Cisco could turn into zero if the floor decides that they also want to offset this 2.7 with their orders. So keep in mind that that's why we have the paired value right beside it, and the rest of the stuff is just where the data is coming from. This comes from NASDAQ, and then the time updates. So at 3:55 is going to be the next interesting release. In the event that we actually do fall off and a lot of these imbalances get paired, this market looks like it wants to come off a little bit. I appreciate this. I appreciate this market falling off because it provides an opportunity for tomorrow. It may not be a great move for today, but tomorrow is definitely going to present itself in a good way. And I just noticed that there was an alert that just went off for me on crude. Breaking through 102.50 final, yeah, well, not the low, but the high since 9:30, the 102.50. So here we are kind of waiting on crude. And here's the update on the imbalances. What do we got? Because Cisco's gone, so that's been offset already. Ford is here, 1.5 to sell. EDU is a buy. I don't know. I can't remember if it was a buy or sell. Probably was a buy because it's still at 1 million shares. SRNE. Intel's gone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ford is still there. EDU is still there. Everything else is, for the most part, is gone quiet. Ford at 2 million shares does not matter, right? It's done 56 million shares on the day, 1.5 left for the imbalance, and 2 million paired. So you can see the interest in Ford at the moment. So this is not going to move the stock at all. EDU, I mean, buy 1 million, it's done 3 million. You can argue 30%, but at the same time, EDU is one of those tricky names that's been a mess to work with ever since that series of falls a while ago. So I'd stay away from EDU, and everything else is just quiet.
I'm ringing the register. We just finally got out of AMC. We were able to make it work late. But the mistake, I think, was if I rolled something into the close, it probably should have been that AMD off of 80. It started out with a good long, but 80 was a target all day. And I decided to take it out at 350 when the imbalances come out there, or in front of the imbalances. That ended up being a mistake. I held meta and got out of AMD. Should have done the absolute obvious or reverse to reverse on those two. So clearly this one works off that level. Still a super strong day for the chips overall. 5% for AMD. Nvidia, which also gave you a good pullback off the highs. It never got to 160. I liked 160 short as much as 80, but guess what? We never saw 160, so I didn't put the trade on. But the same thing with AMD falling off with the rest of the market. But both 5%, super strong day for this chip. So got to give it to Samsung. That was definitely the big catalyst for us and gave us those long opportunities in those chip names. If you're checking back in just late on GameStop here, yes, it had the catalyst, but AMC clearly stole the cake. Still cannot break that 135.50. So the same top channel, it's holding strong at that high of the day. You got to watch both these, AMC and GameStop, wanting to close near those highs. And one last thing, because I love that everyone's sort of throwing the James Caan stuff, because even Lucas here was noting that he was a dad in Elf and did a great job. One of the best marks, and I'm a huge movie guy, one of the best marks of a great actor is that when you think about their role and not them in the film. Like when you think about the dad in Elf, you think about Sonny Corleone, you think about him, you think about Brian Piccolo in Brian's Song, but you don't necessarily think James Caan. That's a credit to him, is he made the roles bigger than him being in the movie. Like you almost forget that he was in it. People forget that Tom Berenger played what's his name, Tom Hagen in Godfather, because he made that role, that character, as opposed to that person. And that's the mark of a great actor, where it's like, oh, this is the next blank. And just give off a big time actor, and it's them in the film, and they play the same thing every single time. That's fine, and it can be entertaining, but I love those classics. where you have somebody that you don't even remember they were in that film, but you darn sure remember the character they played. To me, that's the mark of greatness. I think it really sucks that he passed away, but I know I'm going to make sure one day my daughter, she's 5 years old, she's not watching The Godfather now, but just like my dad did for me, there's a list of things that we're going to sit down and we're going to watch together. Godfather 1, Godfather 2 are part of them. Godfather 3, you'll do it because you got to watch the rest of the trilogy, but quite frankly, it absolutely sucked, and I think everyone can agree on that. One of the worst films ever made to a great trilogy. But we've had a fun show. Thank you guys for getting us to 1,000 likes. You'll like it even better because I look around. Tony is on the bell. I had to
Tony's going to bing that bell, guys. He's going to bing that bell. That's coming from the chat, man. That's not even mine. That's coming straight from the chat. But Tony will be binging that bell.
I don't even know what to say because once again, we're talking about Bing. I don't know why we're talking about Bing, but Bing is a thing here today. Tony's on the bell in just 1 minute. It's been a fun one, to be sure. Like, you've got to be kidding me. How have we given so much lip service to Bing? It makes no sense to me, but now it's in my head. I'm going to be thinking about it. I'm going to be
Next thing you know, we're going to be talking about Zune. So for anyone who knows about Zune, if you don't, you probably don't want to know about Zune.
If you don't know,
you don't want to know.
You know, and I can't finish that.
You don't want to know.
Oh, you really don't want to know.
Yeah, you don't want to know about that. That's one of their most disappointing products. I'm sure it's up there on the biggest flops ever. But yeah, we are in the final 30 seconds, and Tony's standing there, and I don't know who that is.
Katrine's also there as well. So we
got we got somebody else.
We got double barrel action with only 15 seconds to go on the bell. Katrina doing our sales as well. Drop that countdown in 7, 6, 5, make it count in 3, 2, and 1. The bell's yours.
There you go. You got it good.
Tony and Katrina on the bell. Although Tony, you got to let her get the last ring on that bell. Always fun. Always a character. Tony, we love him. Certainly, we have a big team here to thank down the line. Obviously, Katrine, a big part of it. You guys see Maggie from time to time. Today, when I look at the desk to give the thank yous, we've got the hardest working man actually sitting there. And Mark, you never see him on camera, but Mark is always around doing things. He was helping Arun with
he helped me big time with my computers today.
He helped set everything up that you see here. But get him on camera, guys. You can do that. Shoot him on camera there. I don't know. If you can, maybe, who knows.
Fahad said no. I don't know why
Fahad's like,
said
no, we can't get Mark on camera.
Because he's going to end up showing his face, and Fahad doesn't want to do that.
Come on, Fahad.
Sorry. Put on a mask, put on a hood, and get the camera over there.
I know, they won't put themselves on because Fahad has to be the pokeroo. If you get that reference, you're old like I am. But thank you to the entire team, obviously. There they are. There's Mark getting their arms up there. It's a lot that goes into this production. Lucas and Fahad and Mark doing a fantastic job as always. Thank you so much for filling in, Arun. You're back tomorrow. We get another day, and Mr. Katina will be back next week, the holiday shortened week. Brendan, how did we finish up, even though I already know it was...
Yeah, perfect finish, let's call it, to the day. Here we go. Look at a very positive board, top to bottom for you. 1.5% for the S&P, the Dow more than a full percent, 2.25% for the NASDAQ led the way. Crude oil, 4.2% when all was said and done. Huge bounce for Bitcoin into the close there. Bitcoin obviously 24 hours, but as equities wrapped up throughout the afternoon, very, very strong for Bitcoin, 7.5% for Ethereum, guys. So let's see how we end the week tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. Bitcoin actually right too. Oh, yeah.
We got jobs report too tomorrow. That's going to be an interesting one. So prepare for an 8:30 volume rush on the futures, on the equities if you're there early enough. But just be aware, 8:30 tomorrow, jobs report.
And that's, you know what? That's exactly what we want you here for, is that jobs report, because I know that's a bit of your specialty, right?
Yeah.
So thank you, Brendan, for breaking it down for us. Thank you all for stopping by, of course, to the midday team. I don't know where Pratt is. He obviously left. He gone.
He hasn't been at his desk for days now. He just gets up and leaves after the show. I don't know what he's doing.
Pratt's gone, but the fantastic job as always. Ian and Luca, of course, doing a great job as well. They out of here. Brankles, we love you enough for doing or at least helping out certainly with Brendan with the watch list that we give every single day. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you for getting us to 1,000 likes. Shout out to Bears versus Bulls, as always, doing a fantastic job with the moderation. We can't thank you enough for that. It's not an easy job to do it, but you do a fantastic one. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. Remember, get us to 1,000 likes again in the afternoon show. You know what you get to see, a little big pun action for you. But we're TraderTV Live, and we will see you tomorrow morning. Jobs report. Let's go.